welcome back to year 4 of ALGS Split 1, where you can see the best teams in EMEA challenge each other in the most competitive battle royale. I'm Stella Chung, and it is fantastic to be back. Last time I was here with you all was for year 2, and let me tell you, my excitement and love of Apex Legends has not died at all. Welcome to day 2 of Split 1. We'll be seeing Group A return and witness the debut of Group C. And now, if Groups A and B's performances showed us anything last week, it's that these teams are hungry to climb to the top. Joining me today is the wonderful Spider Tiff.
Thank you so much, Stella. I am ecstatic to be back. ALGS is here, and it's match day number 2. You already kind of hinted at it, but I'm excited to see what Group C can bring to the table, because there was a lot of action in APAC South last night. Wonton Dumpling, a 23 elimination game. I want to see some high kill games today.
Yeah, and to help us break down those high-octane matches is also Dia joining the desk.
Hello, hello. I'm not expecting a whole lot of Octane, but with Conduit having taken over the meta recently, that's certainly something that we can look forward to. It still feels surreal to be able to pop on and talk about the action, and Tiff and I have been neck deep in VOD review all week, so I'm really looking forward to the matches.
Yeah, and speaking of someone else who also participates in heavy EMEA VOD review, Zephyr, the king of EMEA himself, welcome.
You're way too kind. I'm no king. These players are the kings and queens themselves. Of course, though, I'm still excited. It is EMEA, and as a result, I've managed to break on through and become the 3rd member of this excellent broadcast today.
Yeah, I'm wondering how exactly you managed to do that. Dia, any ideas?
I think he's collecting the infinity stones of casting. That's what's happening. And he's manifested the reality with them. Don't do it.
Yeah, I think so as well. All right, well, let's take a look at the overall standings after last week's matches. And man, we saw a lot of action. Tiff, can you help us look at the first 10 teams here and kind of break down what exactly we saw with these point structures?
What exactly we saw was something I was not expecting. If anyone would have walked into the EMEA match day number 1 and thought Outplayed would win the first matchup and then the final matchup of the day, well, that's crazy, because that was not on my roster, my bingo card. Element 6, though, with the new roster coming in with Cracked and Slab, they were able to put up so many eliminations, 36 as the team to reign supreme for match day number 1. But I'm really looking for teams like Passion and 2R1C. A lot of questions in particular with that 2R1C roster.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Dia, we're going to look at the back half of the teams from last week, and tell me a bit about what we saw them do in their performances last week.
Now, there were a few surprises here. I'm going to just say it because everybody's looking at them. Alliance in 14th, I think, caught a lot of people off guard, and we won't actually be seeing themselves get to redeem themselves, or rather, we won't get to see them redeem themselves in this week of play, or in this day of play. However, the teams that will be able to are teams like Full English, Mind, and Cybercats, and I'm even looking up near the top of this list at Red Dragon, who barely missed out on top 10, being beat by 40% worse just ahead. These two teams will get to, we'll say, rematch in today's games.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And speaking of today's games, Zephyr, help me look at this comparison of Group A and C and what kind of fights we're going to be seeing today.
Well, we've definitely seen a lot of Group A, that's for sure. But for Group C, it has been a wait in the offseason. Teams like Aurora and, of course, even LAN competitors alongside them, such as Go Next and LCDF, will finally represent. Speaking of Go Next, though, you see my C there, and of course, changes I don't know, or at least from League Ops, haven't come through yet. So a bit spicy with 2R1C after what is supposedly going to be that change. Thorfinn on his way out.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. Now, Tiff, we obviously have a great roster of teams to look at today, but which team in particular are you looking at with matches?
Look, I've been looking at him. The world's been looking at him. It's the return of Max Strafey under kind of the team you aim. Now, we've looked at them and we've centered new contenders. Now, they're not new to Apex competitive by any means. Max Strafey formerly competed alongside Nasky & Co. under GMT Esports, and then most recently Kansas City Pioneers joins up along the likes of Sonya and Artico, who have also been competing since pretty much Apex inception. Now, what will they be able to do today? I've been been keeping my eyes on them in scrims, and I'm hoping for a really solid debut performance here today. Oh,
Now,
but this is where things get really exciting. Dia, I know. I've also been watching Aurora, and if anything is to be said, 9 Impulse had some crazy plays yesterday, so I want to hear more from them about you.
You know, it's funny, Tiff, that you mentioned these two rosters, because while UAIM is made up of individually, I think, really talented players, nobody can deny it, Aurora takes that talent and pushes it to the next level, saying, not only are we going to field incredible players, but we are going to take incredible highlight fights. That doesn't seem to be something they're changing. I've had the chance to talk to Hardeki a little bit earlier in the week about their style, and he was like, yeah, well, I was picked up because I fit the bill. They want to play aggressive, and I'm here to do that.
Yeah, super excited to see how they do today. And speaking of you being able to talk to Hardeki, let's take a look at this interview that we had with Oirain himself on the roster and what exactly they expect from this season.
Hello, my name is Oirain. My team is Hardeki, 9 Impulse, and we are Aurora. We decided to pick Hardeki because we had some troubles with Taskmaster. I mean, in-game. We had some problems that we couldn't fix together. So we found out that we need to swap him. We messaged Hardeki because he was free agent. We tryouted him and we decided to play with him because he's a good player. And also vibes are high, pretty good. We did a quick WOT review with our team, and we decided as usual that we are not gonna adapt to other teams must adapt to us. I think there's not gonna be spicy picks from us. We're gonna stick with Horizon, Bangalore and Bloodhound. And about Conduit, we don't like it. We think it's not fitting in our playstyle. So yeah, we're gonna play without her.
Aurora, the team that refuses to adapt to the meta, but that makes teams adapt to them. It's actually had pretty decent success. They've made it to 2 lands and yet haven't quite hit the top. So I am curious, especially regionally, how this will fare in their first match day.
Yeah, speaking of teams having to get used to how exactly they're going to be acting, ANC, Zephyr, we saw them put on a great performance last week, but do you think they're going to be able to replicate that today?
Ooh, that's the question on everyone's mind here. And you know I love to root for that underdog. For ANC outplayed, to anyone who's been a fan of EMEA, this isn't a team that you should be unfamiliar with, right? They have been across several of the Pro League splits and even had a short stint in Challenger Circuit. But of course, their statistics have left more to be desired, from 25th to 26th to now, last week, a top and second place finish with the most wins overall here. It's highly accredited to things like, of course, Andy Jax on this Watson, the controller demon, and of course, major wins on both World's Edge and Stormpoint. Now, notably, a majority of their points are coming from that placement, so we have big questions regarding whether or not this is a zone-oriented team, and of course, with Andy Jax leading the fray, if he's not on his best mental today, is it going to be enough for them to keep them at least at the tippity top?
Yeah, speaking of their mental, let's actually hear from Shax himself from ANC on their team play and personal team strategies.
Hello, I'm Shax. My teammates are Andy Jax and Willem K. Our coach is Skara, and we are ANC outplayed. Yeah, we have been doing a lot of practice, like ranked, together, so we could get our chemistry much better. We played a lot of fire range pubs, 1v1, and stuff like that to get our mechanics better. And yeah, we played a lot of scrims as well to get more and more VOD review, so we could perform better. Right, so we know each other for 3 or 4 years already, so we know each other in real life as well, and we know how to hype up each other. When someone goes down, when the games are not going well, we always know how to keep it up and hype up each other, so that's what we're gonna do, and it's gonna work. Andy Jax is actually crazy. I think he's one of the most underrated controller player in the game, and on match day 1 he was just on fire. It was insane. He was clutching up every fight, and as a Watson player, getting all that kills is just insane. Shout out to him.
There were a few things that I took from that Shex interview. One being the longevity of the IRL friendships between the team, because that really translates into gameplay, specifically what we saw on match day number 1. Well, the second, cracked controller Watson player. I was not expecting that to come through because, you know, most Watsons typically M&K, but there's been a long shift, especially with Catalyst being akin to the controller players and Andy Jax really prevailing and finding the majority of eliminations on Watson. I'm a fan. I want to see it again today. So throw down Andy Jax. I'll be watching.
Yeah, and we can't talk about last week's match without talking about Element 6. I mean, from what we could see, Element 6 they had some of the best consistency on day 1, and their points at the end clearly showed how great their team plays together. The roster of K-Swinney, Slap, and Cracked honestly haven't had that much time together, but it's incredible that their synergy is just that good. While ANC was incredibly strong, we also saw that the total scoring after 4 matches, and Element 6 was jumping ahead in first place with 54 points, while ANC had 38. So, of course, today, Zephyr, I'm wondering how exactly Element 6 will be going into play day 2, knowing they have a contested drop with LCDF, which you know they've had some struggles with in scrims.
Yeah, if you've been paying attention, whether it's here or on the Twitter sphere, it's been a contentious history between these two teams in at least what is scrims right now. And currently, it has been slightly LCDF favored in terms of winning out in those results. Granted, this is match day, things can shake up, and as we approach that second half, you never know how teams are going to fare and decide depending on those previous 3-game results.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see how these teams are going to do with these new drop zones. But I don't know, Zephyr, who do you think is going to come out on top with these drops here, especially the contestant one? Do you have any idea? Do you have any percentages to give us here? Because I know you love numbers.
But at least right now, when it comes down to Storm Point, we have a couple of contests, but at least right now, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, Tiff, Dia, how are you feeling about the matches that we're going to be seeing today, especially with match number 1? What do you think? Are we going to see teams coming right out the gate, you know, going really aggro, or do you think we're going to see more reserved play?
Ooh, that's a really good question, Stella, because it's kind of interesting. When you look at map 1, a lot of my friends and I, especially Dia and I, we like to call it kind of that litmus test. You're shaking a lot of things out, but especially with seeing Group C for that first time. But Dia, I couldn't be more excited to call the action alongside. So shout out to Stella and Zephyr for joining us on that top of the show. Absolutely slayed it. But with our maps that will be starting, we're kicking off that rotation on Storm Point. And we've seen a lot of zones on Storm Point, Dia, that have had atrocious pools.
Well, yeah, and I think it is going to impact the pace of game today out of what I'm already expecting to be a slightly more passive day. I know we talked about Aurora and their entrance into today's games perhaps affecting the pace of the lobby, but largely most teams from Group C should be playing a little bit more reserved. And Group A, well, they've got a few wild cards of their own, should be on the same page, especially now that it's their second match day, and now some of them actually have something to lose.
Yeah, that will be really interesting. And I love that you got to talk a lot about Aurora, because I had been watching them, in particular scrims from 9 Impulse's POV. And with that kind of composition that they're working on, it's going to be Horizon, Bangalore, Bloodhound, specifically with 9 Impulse playing the Bangalore and kind of smoking out on the entry for their fights. And also the presence of digi-threats have been absolutely crazy, because I know something you and I, Zephyr, or Dia, my apologies, have been talking about has been the amount of digi-threats that are still in competitive play despite the slight nerf to their spawn rate.
Yeah, it's funny when we're looking at just legend comps and, as you say, digi threats being so present, we're still seeing, as much as we talk about Conduit, we talk about her all the time, we're seeing Bangalore, 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 Bangalore. And if you had looked at me 2 years ago and gone, Bangalore's going to be super meta in the ALGS, I wouldn't have believed you. You couldn't pay teams to play Bangalore then. But with the introduction of Storm Point, which, as you said, our starting map, Bangalore started to pick up popularity, and people have really, I think, solved a lot of the RNG around being able to get this incredibly valuable site and abuse that.
I mean, it's really interesting, except, like, I know this is EMEA, but the legend himself, Hal, tweeted out nerf Bangalore. So that should go to show you how many teams are using Bangalore, especially on the rotations, especially when it comes to entry on fights. And the ultimate has just been so prevalent. And that could be to why we are seeing so many Watsons, specifically in Apex South. I watched that last night, and it was wild.
And it's interesting to see Watson as well. Regionally, there's always been a difference with APAC South and APAC North being a little bit more willing to play Watson, but we saw that become a much more viable strategy in international play when we were at Champs, with Watson being a great response to Horizon, another really powerful legend that people have glommed onto in the past, say, 6 months, perhaps year, where Horizon's ability and what she brings to the team, especially not just with her tactical, but ability to change team fights with her ultimate, largely got negated by this soft counter of Watson Catalyst, the double controllers being able to actually put up a sort of defense against the one legend that could start and end a team fight.
Ooh, well, speaking of starting and ending team fights, I cannot wait to jump into match 1 and be able to see how things are going to go, especially with a slew of potential contests on Stormpoint. I know we were kind of dabbling into those at the top of the show, but with scrims kind of being the only real resource that we have had to see how those teams have been practicing those, I can only imagine once you get into the actual match day, which we will be going underway shortly, the pressure, the stakes, the mental load that these teams will have, knowing that they have to show out and perform to the best of their abilities, Dia, it can go any way.
It really can, and looking at last week's games, I mean, contests changed the whole leaderboard. Full English, as an example, was actually doing pretty well until we got to the second half, and 07, while they were having just a fine day, managed to pick up an extra 6 points in the second half of their contests in Lava Fisher. This time, they've managed to go Lava Siphon, which I don't think they'll be too upset about, even uncontested. They won't have the points, but they'll be able to get, hopefully, a little bit more done with the extra loot in Lava Siphon. We are just about ready, though, and that means that Stormpoint has to be our focus. We'll talk about World's Edge a little bit later, right, Tiff?
Yay, because we are starting our match day on Stormpoint. For you at home, get locked and loaded because our players are in that dropship and they are ready to throw down.
You know what I didn't expect at all is the way that new POIs would sort themselves out with teams in EMEA. Because Pylon, the hottest POI on the map, owned by 2R1C, uncontested right now. Nobody's even touching that POI. Instead, going for contests over by, I'd say, slightly weaker positions. Some considering things like Cascade Falls and Checkpoint instead of going for Zeus, the new and improved Lightning Rod, or Pylon.
I really think that's a vital point there, especially contesting on Cascade Falls, because you were akin to talking about the new POIs. One in particular, Cedo Station. That's going to shake up a lot of rotations, and that team can easily move into third, that initial contest.
Yeah, and it's changed, like you say, the rotational ability of a lot of teams as well, because now that you've got a team at Cedo Station and at Jurassic, there's the much more crowding towards the center of the map. But we did talk about Zeus Station and how important that was earlier. We did start off the game with a bit of a fight for it.
Well, that's going to be the Full English and ESG duking it out, and Zeus and Lufka. You're very familiar with them, and it's going to get hot and spicy. Util going through, and that Thermite's just ticking away at Light.
Having Conduit off contest is going to be really nice. With Blasts getting chunked, we'll have to retreat for a moment. Triple take in the hands of Lufka as he goes up to the sky. Light tries to cover an angle, already having gotten a knock with the collaboration of Lufka. A little bit more energy on the ground for them to get more ammunition, but ESG are winning this.
Yeah, the unfortunate news for them, the Radiant transfer gets Lufka back up, and the Full English will be our first team dropped out, which is not going to be what they want, Dia. Such a non-performance that they had in their initial match day to contest in match day 2. That's tough for Noises and crew.
And it doesn't feel good, but looking at this, Full English don't have any choice but to contest. Look at the rest of the map. Where are they going to land? E6 has both Launchpad and Devastated Coast, and it's denying an entire POI from anyone. Literally, if Full English want to land there, having to deal with the top team in the lobby, it's not a good time.
No, it's not. But I love that we were talking about those southern zones on Stormpoint in the top of the show, and you, AIM, who land Barometer, well, this zone is going to favor them. But for teams that maybe don't have the benefit of having that zone pulled to their drop spot POIs, let's look at some of the rotational capabilities in the ring consoles that'll be available to them.
I'm looking immediately at 40% worse. They're catching my eye because North teams do tend to have a small advantage when approaching from the high ground. We're looking at ways for them to be able to collect data, and there's quite a bit of it, including a crafter over at Stormcatcher. Got a Trident moving off in the distance, so plenty of teams are already moving their way in, and the teams that have made their moves right now, even with subpar loot, are those that do not want to be gambling at getting into especially Cedo Station later on.
Phoenix Legacy. This is the first time we're going to see them on the broadcast for year 4 and debuting a new roster as well. Sabs is going to be joined alongside Alpha Draft, who have had that synergy prior and have played extensively. But it's Kiri, the new player for this roster on the Conduit, which is quite interesting because I will say we have definitely seen them kind of extend out and practice on different legends throughout scrims, but locking in that Conduit, man, living up to the meta.
It's gonna, I suppose, try and sustain, especially when you have just white shields. Conduit is going to be much more about giving you an economical way to evo those up. Phoenix, however, already having to pop a cat wall simply to survive as they're shot in the back. Kiri gets some temporary HP and should be able to make it over to the team, but it's a risky move with so many squads already, as we said, moving through this traffic jam that's been created at the center of the map with the addition of Cedo Station.
Going to be really interesting here, but you've got a Conduit against them on this fight with Mind coming through. Radiant Transfer already being expended, so they'll have to wait to see that Conduit. But Yolu, one of the youngest players that had came through on year 3, playing alongside this roster, being able to effectively, continuously feed that Radiant Transfer, something that needs to be managed well, will be that cooldown. Just looking for angles, but the Volt back into play. I've been loving Adia, and they're just trying to get a hold of Phoenix Legacy.
Mind are taking a vote of confidence right now by not healing up the shields, not giving Conduit's Radiant Transfer the ability to change in a situation. They're instead constantly feeding YOLO the ability to get into the fight without healing up. And ultimately, this is going to be a fight that they don't end up taking, but that has nothing to do with Phoenix Legacy up on high ground and way more to do with the fact that now you've got Crafter all to yourself in Cedo.
Hey, look, and especially when you don't have the best armor off drop, or maybe you're looking to find what you can get, but Kiri still with that 30-30 that has been such a staple so far in ALGS, wanting to farm up that white shield, and something to be excited about. Sabs, you know, we saw her play a lot of Watson historically, and kind of really slotting into that Catalyst makes sense for their playstyle.
And it does hurt that they weren't able to get a little bit more econ out of their rotation through the center of the map, but we'll have to see. Hope that they can make it up with the Conduit, and a nice position in Jurassic. It certainly is an active one, if not the best place for Phoenix Legacy to be. 40% worse, however, have started to make their way in. And remember, this is a team that has so much data on the ring. They've already hit the Crafter. They have arguably everything they need in order to hold a good position in zone, and yet they're playing this one a lot slower than you would see if the team was planning on actually sitting in the center of ring.
It's really interesting when you look at the 40% roster, especially knowing what Shiv has kind of been going through, the injury, and trying to rest that up. So while teams have been practicing a lot in scrims, 40% worse actually took the past 2 days off. So I think this map 1, you mentioned they're playing a little bit slower, and that can be akin to kind of trying to get the wheels rolling yet again for them. But the action doesn't stop, and it's Red Dragon that are poised to make this happen. ESG, formerly taking out the full English, are finding themselves in trouble, already losing out on light.
It's unfortunate to see the knock here, but a fight in wall, especially with crafting, is just too good to resist, and Red Dragon's scans have already made a big difference, pushing Lufka down onto the low ground and getting a knock onto Blast as well. Red Dragon have one more member to finish off, and I do wonder if they even commit for it, or now that they've got 2 kills, just let the game play out and finish your crafting.
Let the game play out, let the ring do their work, but there comes the full on to Blast, and sometimes when you've already got that going, Lufka extending out on the hunt. But another team that we've been talking about, Aurora and ANC outplayed. This is a fight that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but look at the space control that Aurora has extended out, and Andy Jax on the Watson kind of trying to fend off any immediate pushes, throwing out some well-placed fences.
I hesitate to call it even a what we normally see as like a ring prediction spot by teams early doesn't seem like the way that Aurora want to play this. Playing up on the ridge line does give a lot of control to teams like ANC Outplayed over who gets to move where, but it does mean that ultimately as this ring closes in, ANC Outplayed are the ones that are going to be at the mercy of Aurora, not the other way around.
Well, it's really interesting because honestly, if they do take that fight and they win out on Outplayed, it almost clears up that entire rotation towards the next pathing of zone. Unless LCDF, Mind, and all of these teams that are going to be essentially late to that rotate will force some congestion. But for Phoenix Legacy, that early engagement with Mind, it almost slowed down their pathing as well, Dia, because we know Phoenix Legacy is one of the quickest teams to rotate.
Teams to be really envious of on this particular map read as well. 07 sat center of barometer, nobody to deal with on the slow side of the ring. Nobody's going to be walking up on them in later zones either, and they've already got plenty of loot and position. 40% worse. The counter to that had to retreat back up out of Jurassic, and their slow play biting them a little bit as now they've got to deal with multiple teams dead center of the ring.
It's not the start you want to see for 40% worse, the Bangalorean warlord himself. But for them to be able to fend off just a little bit and stabilize alongside Zeri, getting those piercing spikes out, wanting to just stave off any bit that they can, but the incoming black hole will prove to be a thorn in their side, and Mandy just cannot get out, and it's going to be Vex opening that up, formerly known as the Boys. So now in a 3v2 situation, how will Shiv and Zeri combat this?
There's no catalyst wall to try and get Mandy back into the game, so likelihood is that 40% worse just have to back off entirely. Even a third party is very, very likely as they sit center of Jurassic, and they may as well make use of catalyst for what she's best for, bunkering down in one of these buildings, finding a safe spot to play, and planning out the rest of this game as a duo.
That is not how you want to start your map number one, but we know they are still warming up for the Vex. This is it, right? They already kind of are trying to make a name for themselves, formerly known as the Boys, getting picked up by an org and throwing down. But for the congestion that they have found themselves in, and with new teams moving in, teams like Forge that want a piece of the action, which is really interesting because I watched a lot of their playstyle throughout scrims, and it was bunkered down, play for that end game, let the kills come to you.
Evac tower's available. Vex don't want to rotate through Jurassic either, but oh no! They walk right into the Prowler's den. May not be literal, but the metaphorical should be enough to take them down. Forge get to benefit massively off of this, cleaning a team quickly, efficiently, and with almost no witnesses.
No witnesses except the one that's incoming, trying to get into that as well. Zeri drops back and tries to put a little pressure before being punished immediately by another team. So for Forge, they should have a relatively easy reset so long as they can stay behind cover, pop that evac. But for Phoenix Legacy, who are having those early issues alongside Mind, a delayed rotation, now we're just down to Savs. But with Kiri on the conduit, we could look for a little bit of a reset.
We did talk about seeing this coming for Phoenix Legacy. Them being denied a crafter early ultimately led them to holding the exact same position we saw them rotate to defensively, which is honestly the middle of nowhere. Nothing to do, no building in Jurassic, no cover, and they get out-angled and outdone. One member left. We'll see how long they're able to survive. ANC Outplayed, as we also talked about, being at the mercy of other teams, very much feeling that right now.
A lot of utility being expended here in LCDF. We talked about them for their contest, most notably on World's Edge, but they've got to get through the Storm Point matches first. And although Hardeki is finding big moments against Outplayed in the kill feed, this moment is all about LCDF, and Outplayed eliminated.
And this is from the south that Aurora is looking at this fight, taking a few chunks out of ANC, not committing to anything, because all Aurora has to do is show presence to push away teams like Made in Heaven, continue to get people playing through the north side. Aurora's next biggest problem is going to be LCDF, who we just saw rotating through Millage, but with Made in Heaven's defensive position, I'm very curious what Lassie de France will choose to do.
As we look to our teams that are picking up space towards that end game, we get an update on where that zone will be pulling to. And for you, AIM, who land in Barometer, have found a favored position. That high ground, though, should that ring pull off, it will provide a lot of congestion. Passion, 202, all looking to make their rotations in. And Red Dragon, they're going to have a big issue, especially with that choke point, knowing that ESG was trying so enticingly hard to hit that reset that Red Dragon was not allowing them to have. This is going to be really tough.
Will Red Dragon actually make it in alive? Late evac tower and a single member dropping into the center of Barometer seems to have survived for now, as Licite de France start moving up on Aurora towards the western side of this ring. 07 still reign in Barometer.
That's a fight that I'm gonna want to see. In particular, Aurora taking that rotational path makes sense. They play Bang Bloodhound. They want that player scan that's available to them via that survey beacon. And is it not already down and out? Red Dragon eliminated off screen, and LCDF about to join them. Aurora starting and ending that fight with ease.
What a smart way to play this as well. We didn't get to see the beginning of the fight. Aurora's positioning essentially won it for them. They already had the rotational advantage being to the south of LCDF, and Licite de France did not have a real place to play. With great coverage out of Hardecky's ultimate, that fight happens so quickly that even 07, who were poised to try and look for the third party, did not get it off and will retreat to their high ground, which, I'll be honest, is not a bad consolation prize.
Not a bad one indeed, but 07 fourth on their first match day showing, 11 squads remaining, and they're still working on that positioning. But Nasky anchoring down for the team, allowing him to make those calls onto Conduit and farm up some shields, leading into that 30-30 meta that we're so akin to, putting pressure on a lot of teams and just effectively gatekeeping at this point.
This is probably, we're coming up on this ring, the next one, where the 30-30 should be the most useful. And there is going to be quite a bit of pressure on Nasky to actually pick up KP from afar, as they were trying to do earlier by firing into the backs of Aurora. The Cybercats are going to be part of what is ultimately a mass exodus from these buildings, as in rings 5 and 6, you can no longer play these. But for now, it's been enough to get you a few placement points. We're already into the top 11, and Cybercats should be feeling pretty comfortable with their ability to take fights as long as they've got cover like this building to work with.
As we can see from our beautiful free cam shot, you're talking about that congestion specifically with 202. Go next, 40% worse, just a lot of teams there, and Made in Heaven anchoring down behind the Dark Veil, especially to cut off that line of sight. But 40% worse, they were looking a little dire, but things are starting to stick up for them. Mandy, this is going to be one of those imperative fights that they need to get done, but they've got the Conduit energy barricade that is going to anchor them off, and Zeri already down. This is going to be tough for them.
No smokes, no ults, but Mandy keeps peeking without even hitting the shield, showing presence, trying to keep Made in Heaven away, but Made in Heaven sniff out that this is a duo, and they're going to three-man swing, slowly pushing 40% worse out of having any place to play behind the white knockdown shield. 40% have no autonomy over the way this fight goes. The smoke providing them a brief respite as Shiv tries to get in on another fight, tries to pick up points, but that's all that it is, because it's buying time until 40% worse inevitably go down.
Made in Heaven turned their attention to 202 and eliminated them. Now full swing on to 40% worse, and this is so tough, looking to clean it up. And Cinetic, what are you doing here? Did one of them get away? Mandy, this is where you need to excel. Mandy the rat plays, but Made in Heaven, they tweeted out, they're like, hey, we're looking for an org going into this, and look, they are showing why they want that signing.
Really ingenious way to get into this fight as well. Made in Heaven started off with the Catalyst wall to get here, and then were able to swing once they saw the rest of the fights going down, and Nox in the kill feed made them a little bit more confident. E6 have taken over 07's position, and Aurora are right next door with these three teams all stacked together, and E6 having just pulled up a mobile res in Zone 3. Things are looking like they're getting even more exciting towards the back half of these rings.
It's really tough, right? Because Cracked immediately got punished and had to take 5 seconds to get that shield back. But 2R1C, they see this as the opening to extend out onto it just a little bit. But it's going to be Aurora that benefits from it, taking that immediate knock on to Cracked. 40% worse will fall, and Hiarka not wanting to lose this positioning that will be just available for them a little bit longer, throwing out the drone, looking for information, but Amphi as well, the lone standing member of 07, just gets caught out by 2R1C. We were asking in that pre-show, what was that team gonna look like with Mycee? Well, it's looking pretty good, Dia.
And here I was imagining they'd be able to stand up to E6, but they get pushed off of the high ground, and very quickly this is devolving for both teams. Nice shots from Uchako.
Oh no.
Ostensibly going to push off of this. You have to imagine with the crack and a knock, Aurora are missing one. 2R1C, though, do not want to give up their high ground. They know they have those kills, but they don't want to risk perhaps just not winning the game off it, because this can be a game-winning position.
I'm pretty sure Max Strafey and a Prowler just single-handedly took out Cybercats. Aurora eliminated, but tuning in with Made in Heaven. A banger game, 8 eliminations so far for the team, and a boatload of loot to go for it. Now if they can just withstand, as we look at these positionings, Dia, you have UAIM playing off the grav cannon. 2R1C are going to have to potentially move off that high ground that will open them up to the rest of the lobby. They have a very tough rotation.
And Made in Heaven have the better angle on this. Them having taken the low ground on paper doesn't seem like a good idea, but it's 2R1C who have put themselves in a corner on the height that are actually in the most trouble, as they now have no space to play. UAIM are going to be forced into Made in Heaven, playing along the other side of the gravity cannon. It's all about what fight starts first, and it looks like 2R1C are getting aggressive.
Yeah, they got to put out the Dark Veil to try and save them from any attention, with Max Strafey having not only the Prowler that we mentioned earlier, but a Kraber as well. This could be absolutely wild, and they've got almost 10 eliminations for that squad, but Uchako and co trying and eventually pushing straight towards that team, but not wanting to extend out too much, and Hiarka does just that. Uchako falls as well, and Mycee, the stand-in here, the newest to the roster, is going to have to put the team on the back and clutch, but it's not going to be enough, because everyone puts their attention straight onto it, and Made in Heaven, with the quickest reset, turn their sights to UAIM and take game number 1.
What an incredible macro move? That's not even the word that I'm looking for. The way that Made in Heaven played their fights on a way that took other teams into account made that game so impressive from them. Being able to manipulate especially those last two teams into fighting each other first was done essentially by an elaborate game of Ring Around the Rosie.
Ring around the Rosie, whatever works. Hey, if you're gonna party around the grav cannon, just make sure Made in Heaven are invited. But for the first match of the day, Dia, on Stormpoint, is that what we were expecting? We asked ourselves that with Outplayed yesterday, but look at the results. 12 eliminations, a 24-point game.
This is a dream for Made in Heaven, and as you asked me just now, absolutely, them defying expectations. Made in Heaven in their debut game of year 4 have really made me question how much control, how much they're in the heads of their opponents. But with UAIM and 2R1C coming up right behind them, it's not a bad start for teams like them, Element 6, or even Aurora. As it is only our first game of the day, there's still options for Made in Heaven to take a few steps down as other teams start ramping up their game.
It'll be quite interesting. I don't know if Zephyr, the EMEA king that Stella self-proclaimed, brought the script to the show, but almost every team that we mentioned at the top of the show performed incredibly well. But as we look towards that end, the full English having that slower start, specifically with that contest being on Zeus Station and Phoenix Legacy and Outplayed, who started off so strong in match day number 1, going out a little bit early there, Dia.
I think a big part of this for Outplayed is that this lobby is a little bit more passive. They're less likely to try and fight early game, more likely to try and survive, and that's almost how we saw all of our fights kick off, was teams just trying to find another place to live and ultimately misstepping off of that. We saw it a lot in Jurassic with, of course, Phoenix Legacy, but also with 40% worse, losing Mandy earlier and then fortunately being able to recover them later. Even Vex going out very early there. So for right now, I think the slower lobby pace is not favoring ANC, who had previously liked to play these really nice, ingenious spots in zone where nobody would push them. The thing is, with a lot of people trying to play that style, there's just not that much space for them.
Not much space indeed, but talk about the damage that we're witnessing from our top 3 teams. My eyes immediately go straight to UAIM and Max Strafey. 5 eliminations and 2k damage. Absolutely wild, but I mean, if you're carrying a Kraber and a Prowler into endgame, it makes sense. But for Made in Heaven, 6-3-3, relatively split out for the team in a 12 kill, 14 assist game. That's a game one, if I have to say so.
Yeah, and this is clearly a team effort. Like, even with them having, you know, one damage leader perhaps a little bit further ahead, Made in Heaven play as a unit really well, and we saw them do that, especially with the Catalyst while moving into Barometer, because this was not a team that sat dead center of zone and farmed kills from afar. This was a team that were actively taking close to mid-range fights and just doing it in a way that was proactive and took advantage of teams that already had something else on their plate.
Hey, look, whatever has to work, you got to do it. Made in Heaven, I can't wait to see more action from you. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series Year 4. I'm Spider Tiff, and joining alongside me for game number 2 is Zephyr. Now, Zephyr, you kind of got to lay in the back, watch kind of what was happening, and more particularly, that contest between the Full English and ESG. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I was about to say, I might be laying, but I'm definitely not sleeping, okay? Especially with action starting off that aggressively there. And we are looking for big wins, at least right now, outside of the Full English, but they still lose out in terms of control in that early game, similarly to what we saw out of their day 1 performance here. Now, granted, it is the delay, though, that comes alongside that is no benefit to any one of these teams here. We come out of that game with over 5k plus ring damage taken from the majority of our rosters, and most notably, though, even if Made in Heaven aren't the ones, or my apologies, even if Full English aren't the ones coming out on top of that, they actually did delay and stun ESG to the point where they took upwards of 2k damage from the ring there in what was then down their transition to the wall, where we saw that action unfold against Red Dragon.
Yeah, that was really tough for ESG to try and kind of move forward after the full English bout and then try to survive going all the way down south, especially with that zone pulling down towards Barometer. If you are fighting over one of the most northern POIs, that is not what you want to be doing. So for those teams, if they're going to be going back at it again for that contest, because there's really not anywhere else for them to go, unless they'd like to chow a different team, may the odds be ever in your favor for northern zones. But as we get ready for match number 2, Zephyr, any predictions for how this is gonna go? Who's gonna win? Tell me right now.
Oh, predictions. All right, well, in fairness, at the top, you do see, of course, Aurora, E6, and 2R1C representing in the strongest of their stints. But the team that I want to bring up is UAIM. They've come out above the rest, notably the highest damage of any other roster currently on the map, currently at 5,058 damage. And of course, alongside that, the highest damage differential. Now, whether or not that's from the heirloom weapons that they have alongside their belt, they still notably lead the pack and should evidently, maybe in better positioning, walk away with the win.
Can you say that again, please? Because I just want to reiterate my top of show, and anytime I talk about a team, that I'm not actually a curse. I'm a blessing there. Can you say it one more time?
Tiffany is a blessing. She is the angel of the battlefield, the conduit, the medic in play,
the pocket healer. But as we get geared up for map number 2, running it back on Storm Point, contests and all, I cannot wait to see, will Noises make that switch to controller work out in their favor? Because a lot of people have been having questions. Noises, one of the most mechanically gifted M&K players, in my opinion, came into year 4 knowing that changes needed to be made. Bryn on the return, so all eyes go to Zeus Station.
Ooh. Off a drop here, it's going to come down to the choice of course, immediately of this drop ship, which does actually favor presence towards the northern side. So for both of these teams, they won't actually have any further delay in terms of getting to the POI that they need to be at.
Well, hear me out. We're gonna switch things up on this broadcast. We're gonna try something new, Zephyr, so you're actually not gonna hear from us off rip. I would love to start this map off with a listen-in from the full English side of things.
Yeah. I'm gonna open the bin on the right. I'm opening bin on right, okay? I got booped. I'm going to the other bins.
I have to go inside. I'm playing inside. Help me.
I got guns. I'm coming down.
Fuck. All 3 inside.
90.
Hold off a gun, bro.
Surrounding.
Yeah. Play to craft banners, bro. You're good.
I just fucking gun.
I got booped, man. That's so unfortunate. I actually just got booped.
Well, notably, it is a loss there. The full English unable to come out on top.
That is absolutely wild, Zephyr, and Bryn just running, trying to get out of dodge. But this is another reason why Conduit can be so important. As a support legend, you have the ability to craft banners, but most notably, any time that you have to extend away from a contest like that, you chalk it up as a loss on that contest.
Yeah. Notably, in terms of the drop in area that we did see there, of course, from the likes of Full English 2, it does seem like there was a slight delay in terms of the presence of getting towards that West Zeus station. ESG having a lot more, at least early potential from the eastern side, which gave them better weapons, a regrouping situation, and all 3 within that building, which you guys clearly saw, caught, of course, the Full English with their pants down.
Ooh, but for Made in Heaven, after a strong performance in map number 1, taking that win, you're gonna be going up against 07 this early on now. A 2v2, the Radiant transfer coming through, but not quick enough because Nags, you have to clutch this up. R9 in hand and a hipfire G7 not going to connect. And man, Made in Heaven keeping up their grind. But for Go Next, who want to be a third party to this situation, it's gonna be tough for them to reset.
And I know you guys talked about in that last game, Cedo Station now being at least the kind of cluster of this current map. And for now, it seems like they got a bit of a split, tried to pull away tax there, locking doors, but instead finding a successful trident for rotation, leaving behind a solo member of Maidenhead to, well, inevitably be swatted down here.
That's gonna be Arctic, and man, that is just tough. But Tax, looking like he's a member of Tokyo Drift out there just going through, and that's very similar to how we were talking about the full English. They can essentially make their escape, look for a crafting reset, maybe hit a negative rotate and try to find a free space to make that happen. But as you can see, Go Next immediately in a poke battle there in a long distance. But for Phoenix Legacy, who got caught out on rotation, Zephyr, will they be able to make this play for map number 2?
This is something that we saw them really challenged with last time around here as they went up against Mine, and it's something that stunted their rotation from ever taking place, at least in our first game one. My question kind of remains, have they learned their lesson? Are they looking to take it just as aggressively? Or with, of course, the ring now posing itself more towards this western side, do they set themselves up for an early rotation? Well, at least know they can expend the time here.
Yeah, I think that's something great to talk about, Zephyr, because we did get a brief look at that ring and where it's essentially pulling towards. And knowing that Phoenix Legacy land checkpoint, they've already dropped down south looking to position themselves. But you aim to R1C and Go Next, essentially being in that central area. Will 40% worse be able to make their play? But they've got to get through Forge first, and already grabbing that opening knock onto Phoenix to turn the numbers into their favor, but not extending out to capitalize on it.
And you know what? I'm okay with that. From the likes of 40% worse, a lot of their presence in this mid to late game was challenged by so much opposing pressure from multiple rosters. Taking this a little bit slower, feasting for some of this KP, and kind of fighting your way in as that choice obstacle seems to be, well, at least what they may be trying to do. It was that last game that we saw the issue with Vexed earlier coming up from behind in Pylon that might now be influencing why they might at least be taking their time.
As we look through, kind of looking at what Shiv and 40% worse have, sitting on 2 blues, a purple, poised pretty nicely, but almost kitted out G7 Scout is such an interesting take. With so many 30-30s reigning supreme, is specifically on Storm Point with a lot of those long sight lines. We kind of move over here towards Black Diamond, and Zephyr, I was playing the other day and I didn't even realize that this whole POI, this lift, had a name Black Diamond.
Hey, it kind of makes sense, though. I mean, we're talking about hillsides, we're talking about the sliding and the potential danger that exists there, especially when we pull towards the north. It could be the Apex Legends Black Diamond here. For Maiden Heaven, though, they're back. They have made their way down Beast, get the full revive, and they're just as quick to start pressuring some of those teams towards checkpoint. This, of course, being alongside that major revive change, and it makes it more of an advantage to look for these escapes, unlike the full English.
It's interesting enough that you say that, because if you look towards checkpoint, they have the survey beacon. It's one of those POIs that a lot of people will like to move through, especially if you're from North Pad, if you're from Wall. And for full English, man, another tough round of games for them.
Yeah, it's something that they might have to go back up to the drawing board, especially as we approach maybe even our second half here for the rest of the day. At least for now, though, they still get one final opportunity to take it toe-to-toe to ESG here. For Red Dragon, this is a team that is expending their entire zones 1 and 2 currently in the wall. The slowest rotating team of any roster. And it's actually going to come up and support them this time around. Game 1, they catch ESG. This time, Forge.
Oh, this is so unlucky for Forge, Zephyr. They had already lost out on Phoenix, so moving into the wall, potentially looking to get back up to a trio, but losing out on Jay Savage is going to be Red Dragon, who's finding a lot of success in these engagements here at the wall. It was formerly in map number 1, ESG, but this time, Forge not going to be able to potentially get the reset that they were hoping for. And this is one of the toughest POIs, in my opinion, to hit a reset on, specifically if you look at the positioning of the respawn beacon, right? It's so open, anyone can see it, but Red Dragon know that they've got it, and well, hey, let's be real. They get to craft essentially for free.
It's such an odd variety of what we've seen out of teams. It gives me almost Alliance feelings, but even for Alliance, they tend to rotate a lot quicker as well. Red Dragon really cementing themselves as a team that is prioritizing this edge out of at least the wall for these first 2 games. Here's E6, though, a roster that, well, last time around was in the heart of our zone, even though they faced their difficulties. Now with full red Evo, slowly closing the space.
Hey, I mean, and also running the comp that Aurora has chosen as well. They don't want to bring in Conduit today, and we know K-Swinny and crew from historically that they have some of the most adaptable players, K-Swinny being one of them, whether it's Octane, whether who knows what they want to break out, but putting him on Bangalore and finding some success, a rather lackluster performance in map number 1, not really up to their par of what they want, but it's an easy bounce back for them as they secure this position and look to try and out-angle Cybercats on their way for the rotation. Meanwhile, Zephyr outplayed Fallen as well.
This is like night and day. If you were here last week, that's not the outplayed that we saw. Now, granted, difficulties in terms of making this way, or at least through some of these areas here, might give some of those explanations, but 2 in a row will set them potentially at a deficit for the rest of today here. It's going to be, of course, Passion coming on top of that, one of our PLQ teams to win a day alongside the likes of Red Dragon.
I've been a fan of Passion. I've been watching a lot of perspectives from them, specifically in scrims, and between Denze and Yakyu, it's been really wild. But for a lot of those teams that have started to position themselves inside of Cedo, Cybercats wanting to find space, but they have to get there first, and finding a lot of pressure on their rotation with Element 6 hot on their heels. Slab immediately pops the Bloodhound ult and just pushes forward. Slab and Cracked found so many eliminations in match number 1, and K-Swinny, the IGL himself, but this is a very conservative push, and I look to maybe see them take an evac tower out of this congested area and put them further into Cedo.
Yeah, especially after what we saw from Outplayed moments ago, trying to cross through this POI is basically a death sentence, especially this late into the game. E6 do a phenomenal job giving themselves the decisive height there, and now have their options for further play. Red Dragon, though, the LCDF, they themselves taking the height of checkpoint for Red Dragon. This is one of the first times we're going to get to see them fight outside of the home they call wall.
All right, LCDF Kiner in ult as well, already throwing an immense amount of damage down, but can we capitalize on it? Dropping down towards the low grounds, fights in checkpoint can be a little bit of a cluster, specifically akin to that ring around the rosy type style fights that we witnessed in map number 1. It's happening, and Kiner on the hunt, just trying to make it happen. You've got Easy Down going to drop down as well, forcing them out into the zone.
Just perfect presence here from the likes of La Cité de France. And as they went for this push, Kiner with that off angle, pressuring this team back, and now with the double knock, utilizing majority of that from the ring damage, they will finish off Red Dragon easily as they bite behind their heels.
See ya, Red Dragon, and now down to 15 squads with LCDF in hot pursuit. They will have to kind of start that rotation back through where the ring is essentially pulling to where Phoenix Legacy has positioned themselves so exceptionally well. In particular, when you're not getting your rotation delayed kind of in that early bout, see what Phoenix Legacy is capable to do, and Aurora kind of mirroring what they did in map number 1, looking for a lot of that space onto that western side of the zone as well.
I'll tell you what, I absolutely love Phoenix Legacy's position, but it does bring up some major questions about how they can sustain in it. Notably, teams like 2R1C, the closest on the western end of Cedo Station, will be the first to rotate, but alongside them, you know, the rest of the lobby as well here. That's a building of high real estate, good value, and extension for any one of these teams to make it to the end game.
It's gonna be kind of interesting, and something else to note, Forge, full reset. Out there in the mix with Element 6 trying to make a play to hit the rotation. But for Made in Heaven, are we about to see a rat play out of them? Or are they just trying to play essentially small, as we'd like to call it, not show presence for teams that are looking to rotate out from the checkpoint side of things?
This is ratting. At the end of the day, these boys are down in the depths and the cracks below, and they await any challenger within checkpoint, but they've got time to spare. Unlike that, though, I know you just bring them up, and I know we want to see their success, but it won't start anytime soon. E6, great on the coverage from behind, and now looking for deep rotations for Vex themselves, pushing through the same checkpoint area. It's 40% worse, who actually bites the bullet here.
Just 40% worse in this moment. Vex able to get the best of Zeri, Mandy, and Co. And now down to 13 squads and relatively reigning supreme in this kind of choke towards tunnel. We have to start thinking about what that is going to look like. We have to push towards where Made in Heaven was, but there will be a team that has found themselves sandwiched in the middle. LCDF, this is going to break out into something very interesting. And if I'm Vex, I want to capitalize and make this a third-party situation. But I'd be curious to see what they plan to do.
And it's such an issue too, especially with LCDF getting these scans out early on them. They have, of course, the clear Kiner coming through now with that Beast of the Hunt. So these smokes not going to be as influential, as this is looking a lot like what we saw out of their Red Dragon exchange earlier on. Pressuring them back into the corner here. It's going to be good height, though, that in the end is actually picked up by Made in Heaven from behind.
Oh, this is exactly the opposite situation of what we just put out. Meanwhile, the collapse in Cedo is happening and Element 6 will fall. But for Vex, they've reigned supreme, been a little bit able to stabilize and not let LCDF take them, because this is what you want. With Made in Heaven moving on and taking the attention of LCDF away, this is benefiting Vex right now.
Made in Heaven, now knowing that they have a minor numbers advantage, will try to push and clear out their backside, but they lose touching factor on LCDF, especially with that evac coming down. You have to wonder if they are keeping track of Vex here. Those shots already coming through, and even Arctic taking the brunt of that damage, just barely able to start sticking out that bat.
But Made in Heaven, after winning map number 1, they want to continue on that momentum forward. Tax, 1 HP. Cinetic, not able to get the shields back up. And unfortunately, we will see one member fall. So a duo taking on the trio of Vex. And Isidon from LCDF wants to get back into the fight. Babylon's in the Prowler, able to really put the pressure onto Made in Heaven.
And in their faltering moments, Made in Heaven pushing too aggressively puts Vexed in the driver's seat after what was the worst positioning out from them, stuck in the corner. Now, after biding their time, looking towards the outside here of checkpoint. Well, CDF will be those gatekeepers, but for Vexed, they're more than happy to just clean things up.
Yeah, I understand that Vex cleans up Made in Heaven, but the ring is closing. They have to go. They have to move in LCDF. Likely, this will kill them all.
Izidan, Psychop there, stuck out over on the side, just barely surviving on the edge of zone, but it will inevitably be the ring damage that cuts them back. But like you said, overall, now out in the height of things, trying to posture over to the east. Fago's dancing, but you can't dance that good.
And LCDF fall. Aurora, who had all the space on the western side of the ring, now looking to put pressure towards Phoenix Legacy. Something that you were asking early on. Yes, they have a beautiful position in that endgame, but is it sustainable? But is Cedo Station sustainable? We knew there were levels. One of the newest POIs, 2R1C, Passion, you aim. You got Cybercats over there and ESG making presence. What the heck is happening?
Notably, you aim on top of things as well here. They're going to be putting a lot of pressure down from the heights that be, as we did start to see these teams get involved. Aurora from their distance across, most notably. I'm very curious to see how they either slide down and take presence on the outskirts of Phoenix Legacy's building or look for that contest. It will be difficult, though. Phoenix Legacy notably having that catalyst makes any kind of building always the choice, well, at least to decide.
Actually, Cybercats right now are pretty typical, trying to not get engaged inside of that Cedo Station. They'll look to move around, but gonna be really tough, especially with Aurora effectively putting the stomp down over there. And I think they may have fallen, but down to 8 squads, and you aim performing exceptionally well in map number 1 on that high ground. And with 18 seconds to go, the ultimate rotation, the massive migration to Phoenix Legacy's position will have to go. But Passion, they want to make a play, and Denze effectively swings out, throwing down a massive amount of damage on that double energy loadout with energy weapons, making a play here in ALGS. Zero falls. Denze, the pressure comes through, but not before UQ is able to grab 2 knocks onto UAIM.
This might have sealed UAIM's deal here, as now we see the minor embers of a crypto EMP out in the distance from what we can assume is 2R1C with their hedge over the other side of the building. Passion have taken away this height, but need to make decisions ahead. Now the only team notably as a full 3-man force coming out of the Cedo Station is none other than 2R1C. ESG looking to track things out, and with a wingman in hand, Lufka will pound.
Well, with Cybercats out of the lobby and you aim to join them now, ESG have effectively played from the positioning that Cybercats wanted. Notably, 202, a rat in this lobby, but Lufka, we got the black hole out and the wingman throws in and we are connecting. This is what you want to see. Is the wingman OP? I don't know, but it's working.
Whatever rotation they decided to choose here comes out to balloon the ESG domination. Now for Aurora, we talked about whether they play for the house. This time, they're going for the waterfall. Go next alongside them, trying to see if they can stick through the smoke here. Hardeki looking, but from above instead, it'll be Impulse.
Impulse opening things up, and Hardeki consistently berating them with pressure from the Volt dropping down, and Oirein pushes in and completely collapses around Go Next. Now, Bambino still able to get out barely with their life. That's a win for Aurora. That's some win for Space. But for the sustainability that Phoenix Legacy was able to keep in that position, they're still here in the top 4. ESG swarming around them, sharks in the water, but they've also got attention here onto Aurora. This will be interesting.
Go Next inevitably found the rat that be here. And now for our top 3, ESG laying quite a stake of control here on this height. I saw a moment ago that we had some cat spikes out on the exterior of this building. Not quite sure if that's actually Phoenix Legacy's or what could have been some impressions from earlier on that might prevent them from getting good leaps on the outside. I have to wait and see. I believe that's on window, so probably Phoenix.
Really curious to see here. I know 9ims loves to roll with at least 6 nades. If he was able to go into endgame, having those resources available to them, Phoenix Legacy, this is going to be tough because yes, you can reinforce those doors via the cat, but one thermite, it's imploding. One black hole, it's imploding. And for right now, we're just kind of having a little campfire inside, honestly.
Hey, you know what? Rolling Thunder is ready and available for Alpha Draft here. He drops that ultimate with little to no cover on this exterior, and that might be a bit of an opening that Phoenix Legacy could work with. But with this height from ESG, it is going to be so difficult to walk outside of this building confidently. That's why I'm starting to look towards Aurora. Look at them getting sneaky smokes on the exterior, trying to control the space as much as they can here, biding their time. We're gonna see if they can call down some additional cover.
It's really interesting. Honestly, they throw down the mobile respawn. They're throwing down an evac tower. And with ESG having multiple digis on their team, 9 impulse on the bang, no matter how many smokes you throw out, you still have to play without peeking because Lufka is just looking for that opening to allow that pressure on, but he breaks out. He's got an arc star. Here comes the Rolling Thunder. Aurora, you've got to play here, and ESG will likely turn their attention onto them, giving Phoenix Legacy the ability to make a third party.
They haven't moved yet, still playing on the interior. It'll finally be their rotation outside. Stuck, though, due to the grab lift, and instead, ESG climbed up from behind.
Aurora make their presence known, and there go the Arc Stars, and with Phoenix Legacy stuck on the inside, Aurora have the easiest win of their life, controlling space, playing smart. Congratulations to the boys at Aurora for taking map number 2.
I mean, I know we love to talk up the Aurora roster as this massively fighting, aggressive squad, but here's the truth, Tiff. That was a lot of distinguished patience at the end from Aurora. You brought up great examples with, of course, the cover they're playing around. They not only can really play around it, they cannot even peek. They can't even show faith in any of these fights. And as a result, with that zone pull, it actually extends ESG into a poor position where, in the end, Phoenix Legacy are walking out. And the minute that occurs, that's when Aurora strikes. That decisive nature is why this team comes out on top, not just because they're good at fighting.
And it's interesting enough because we had that interview with Oirein at the top of the show where they were talking about kind of bringing Hardeki in, being that free agent, and kind of trying to fix all of the potential issues that they had playing alongside Task. They were like, look, we just couldn't figure it out together, and Hardeki was a free agent. We brought him in, and look at the synergy. Everything that you mentioned, Zephyr, came true here. And to get a win on your first match day showing, the level of confidence with that trio has to exponentially rise. So brilliant job to them. They knew they didn't need a conduit to play, and they showed exactly why. That cover was of no issue.
But still, it's big wins on the other side of the bracket here for the likes of Phoenix Legacy and Electrify Steel. Of course, coming out of that one, not in a winning position, still nets them a second and third. We go back to last game with Electrify Steel failing to commit to a rotation after making that successful contest happen. As a result, they don't pull for wall, they don't delay in Red Dragon, they
what they wanted to debut as well. UAIM, Phoenix Legacy, and ESG, despite being in that initial contest at Zeus, still putting up some good points. And 2R1C, hey, we were asking, would that potential roster swap make or change? Will they find themselves in the exact position so far as last week's performance?
We'll see if they continue to climb or even potentially fall here. But at least for me, I'm not just looking at them down in the bottom, the depths. 07, of course, they're not really on their best foot forward. Nasky and crew were incredibly poised in their first, at least, take in day one. But this time around, the engines are cold.
Ooh, well, thank you so much for joining me today, Zephyr, to cast number 2. I know you'll be back alongside Dia later for another map. Welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series Year 4. It's match day number 2. 2 maps down on Storm Point. We're moving into the final one. And honestly, welcome back, Dia.
Thank you very much, Tiff. I was sitting backstage watching the show and going, ooh, I want to talk about that. Ooh, I want to talk about that. Ooh,
we'll talk
ooh,
about
I want
it.
to talk about that. So I'm very excited that we get to come back for game 3 and maybe get a bit of a different look at Storm Point. I really liked the way the last game played out. Of course, it was exciting. We had teams demonstrating really different sides of themselves, but the ring, the map, more or less the same, honestly. Going over to Barometer one time, Cedo the other. It's going to make a minor difference, especially for teams that land in the south, but for teams that land over by Lightning Rod, by Zeus and Wall, it's the same zone.
It is the same zone, and I know for those teams that are on that northern side, they're like, please pull Thunderwatch, please pull Lightning Rod, give us something exciting, right? Because you have to think about that. For the teams that are landing southern, it would be a challenge. Aurora, UAIM, Cybercats. We all know going from the most southern areas on the map to the northern ending zones are challenging, but for our players, they're asking questions, and in particular, what's Zeus Station gonna look like? We had that listen in with the full English, and it sounded a little chaotic, but for ESG, so far, they're winning.
You know what's fascinating about this as well is the way that we have the full English trying to figure out where they're playing, and Phoenix Legacy doing a really similar thing, but still being able to turn around game number 2. Phoenix have been sitting over by a checkpoint, but we're gonna have to hold it as we are gonna be saying goodbye to yet another squad. The Forge, in fact, on the back foot right now with a Devo off drop. It is not what I'd wish for.
And the Forge will be your first team to fall here in that Cascade Falls contention. Denze and co for Passion looking for that quick reset, but let's talk about the armor check. Q Wigs, blue, no, it's blue, gold, white, not bad, but Conduit on Contents, I'm telling you, it's a really nice thing. But checking in over at Zeus Station, I see noises, I see Sir Dell. We might be okay here because ESG is eliminated.
No way. The full English finally get this, and not only do they win the fight, but they win it at the most crucial time. Take a look when we get back on the mini-map, or when we have the mini-map in the upper left, as to, even better, where the ring is going. The full English have won the fight in the one game where it really pays to have all of Zeus Station.
Hear me out, Dia. Look, I've been typing a lot. I think I got the script. I've been writing. I've been doing all things. The full English needed this. And with it pulling straight to a potential lightning rod, we know we've seen those northern zones and we've seen them kind of go out, especially towards that building on the western side of Zeus Station. But in particular, 40% worse, who have actually started a little lackluster in map number 1 and 2 while they're kind of heating up. I refer to this team as a slow burn, right? They start off a little slow, they start picking up that momentum, and what a perfect zone for them to have.
This actually looks really good on paper for 40% worse, and I cannot quite tell from here, but from my eyes, it doesn't look like they're going to have the read on this ring console. They'll have crafting, they'll have a survey beacon, but it's not going to be quite the same level of information they might otherwise use to get a game-winning position. They'll really have to rely on a good zone read out of their IGL, where 07 are not doing that at all. They are instead relying on fragging out to get them further up the leaderboards.
We come into the last bit of this fight with 07 and Made in Heaven, and Amphi takes out 2 of them, but I don't think... Did he even take any damage? What a clean swing out of 07, and now that they've eliminated Made in Heaven in their rotational path, they can hop back in the Trident and carry on their way. Hey, but we've got our next victim, so you gotta smoke them out and keep going.
Yeah, operatively back in the Trident, which is the really scary thing. Like, they're getting the Trident, they find a fight, they get out, they take you down, then they move on. For the moment, it does look like they're a little more interested in continuing on past Passion, who are trying to gatekeep them out of the north side of the zone, but it's a really difficult place to actually make sure people don't get past you. Passion, for all of the good position that they have on teams that might come from Cascade, not a whole lot of teams are actually going to rotate through that way. Most squads preferring instead to rotate out through the east and Spider Caves, or up through the north and Wall and Black Diamond.
Yeah, that's a really good note there, Dia, because I think the most eastern pathways for rotations could potentially be the safest, through spiders, through as well. But for Passion, still working on making their way up, but another Trident will be in the midst for them. It's likely 07 because we know that they've been hopping in the whip and getting a little bit crazy.
And now 07 are in a position where they can actually gatekeep Passion in later rings. You have to imagine that 07 have a zone read to work with as well, since they've put themselves basically perfectly in that gatekeeping spot for high ground. With other teams starting to rotate through wall, I'm also curious what Red Dragon will do this game, given that they've sat in wall 2 games in a row when it had Crafter and farmed other teams. This time, with wall not having Crafter, Red Dragon should be liberated to roam the map.
Interesting rotate out here from Aurora, but very smart for them, knowing they land in Cenote and having one of the farthest rotations. Wow, it is literally like I just spoke to the future just 10 minutes ago, but they're going to go ahead, rotate up with the Trident to mill, craft up those shields so they can go in and fight for high value positionings, knowing that they're going to be late. So you can talk about this, Dia, because I know we've had conversations about it while we see kind of Passion inching their way forward. Proactive and like active positioning when they're in zone, looking for those places that they'd like to play from.
Yeah, honestly, godlike loot to do so with as well. Their move up towards this high ground is relatively uncontested, and thank God it is, because while they have incredible shields to work with, a lot of resources in terms of sustain for batteries, meds, etc., they don't have a whole lot of bullets, and that is a little bit concerning. The fact that Passion get all the way up here doesn't mean their job is done. They still have to take a fight up against one of the teams that rotated ahead of them. That could be Red Dragon, could be ANC outplayed, or it could be Full English, who we know started the game as Zeus.
Ooh, it's like we're talking about all the new POIs. We had the collapse of Cito just last match, and now we could have the brawl at Zeus. We'll have to keep an eye on that, but for right now, Lightning Rod is getting mixy. Phoenix Legacy, who are pretty good at their macro and calling where those zones will end, have positioned themselves just on the south side of the zip to go up towards top. And you also have 2R1C, with Sabs being the last one standing and a PK in hand, falling inevitably so low. A 1v2 situation will be very tough, but it connects and forcing them to go back up top. But the thing is, your conduit's down. You're not going to have the Radiant transfer. It's really tough to try and heal up. But grabbing the banner, getting a shield swap, this could help them just a little bit. But knowing that Vex is at full health, it's delaying the inevitable here for Sabs. And here comes the swing, and just like that, Phoenix Legacy done and dusted.
And Vex have no problems dealing with that. Their ultimate high ground in Lightning Rod is one that you can really only get when you land Lightning Rod. They got that, they got a beacon scan, and they went, you know what? We are going to sit in an untakeable position, even as they extend to take a fight up against Phoenix Legacy. There's no real way to take away Vex's position, and it allows them to collect KP in a way that really no other team can mess with them. It puts them in a really confident position. We will have to watch out for potential rotates through Zeus Station. There's a cheeky little zip line behind Vex, but I'm sure they've got eyes on it.
Definitely have eyes on it in the full English, kind of sitting towards that survey beacon. May have a bout here with outplay, but you need to keep your eyes on LCDF and Passion as they continue that rotation on the northernmost points. But for Cybercats, who land coastal, their journey to the top of Storm Point is still moving. And as they go through Stormcatcher, they'll get the opportunity to craft as well as Mind, who will likely have that ring console available to them to give them inevitably that information that we get granted here on main. Right? We're fighting to know specifically where that zone pull will look. And for the teams that get that information and they're like, I know for a fact this is where it goes, that will inevitably help them for the teams that are kind of guessing where that zone will go and give them that extra confidence.
A lot of common endings are taken up already. Vex and UAIM in some of the best positions at Lightning Rod. Most other teams are going to be fighting their way in from the various points through the ring, and we know that Element 6 are going to be a big force on the eastern side, where we've still got teams like LCDF and 07 approaching from the west. Full English and ANC wait up in Zeus Station for their rotation in, likely going to try and deal with this zipline rotate later. You have to imagine that that's at least on their minds as a possibility.
Outplayed has kind of effectively maneuvered around the full English and have inched ever so closer towards where that zone is going towards. But you have to think here, Dia, Outplayed and co, they cannot be happy with their performance from map number 2, especially from that interview with Shex. But something in particular that he said was the synergy, knowing how to hype up the teammates after performances that may not be what they want. This could be kind of the start of them looking to get themselves back into the fray of things and get some points on the board. But for Mind, well, they barricade forward.
We did touch on this after game 1 as well, but it's a little bit more passive of a day, even as there are fights breaking out around the map. Take, say, 07 and Passion as an example, choosing instead to bypass each other and not take a fight on low ground for nothing. 07, in fact, suffering losses right now as they find themselves accidentally on the wrong end of an engagement, and with Mind just above all of this, there is the potential to collect KP.
Yolu positioning themselves, kind of inching forward, looking to garner information for the crew. And now you can play from here, but the 30-30 just raining like hellfire from above. The punishment will come through. There are Kravers in the lobby, and in particular, Red Dragon has them. But for LCDF, the punishment that they want to enact alongside Red Dragon, look, it's starting to get a little personal. Nah, I'm just kidding. But they did point them out of checkpoint in map number 2, and they're looking to do so again. But it's going to be EasyDon who actually gets punished from a local Max Strafey on UAIM.
That was so messed up, actually, getting shot in the side, looking for the last member, only to then turn around and be shot in the back. Kiner's gonna go for this, and now having full information, does manage to push Red Dragon out of their hidey hole and into the lobby, as they are no longer gonna be in this last game on Storm Point. LCDF own the ground that 07 was previously rotating from underneath this cave, and it will come down to an engagement between them and Mind to see who really owns the West.
Well, the fights that have been happening have been really interesting for LCDF, but we turn our attention to the full English. The first game they actually get to play, and it's going to be all eyes on Passion. 2 members down in a 3v1, looking to clean it up, and the full English reign supreme. Welcome back, Bryn. It's so nice to see you in competitive again.
Picking up a few kills will have also attracted quite a bit of attention. ANC Outplayed still lie on the rotation in, and now with the last member of 07 caught between the 2 squads, we will see at least 1 more kill go down, likely 4, with the full English having nowhere to go. A nicely placed Arcstar scatters them, and Serdell tries to make a maneuver up towards the next ring. As we've just got a few seconds left until this closes. Full English retake ground in Zoo Station. They want to fight ANC Outplayed.
Look, I understand that we're taking ground in Zeus Station, but this is going to be one of the most highly congested rotations over towards Lightning Rod, and we don't have much time before that ring comes through. And E6, they're in a little bit of trouble, but Slab able to clutch it up and take out 202. But with time of the essence, we have to heal on the go immediately, popping that syringe. They don't have a conduit. They're likely not going to be able to get their teammates back into the game, but all eyes are on Cybercats near that gravity cannon, undergoing a lot of pressure.
Gravity Cannon, honestly, not the position that it could be, especially with high ground having such easy access. Teams like Mind and Lasita Friends will be able to focus on this team later. Speaking of, Full English have split up from ANC Outplayed. ANC taking the northernmost end of Lightning Rod as Full English start to crawl their way up towards Lasita France.
Very curious to see how this goes. Now Cybercats, a duo. Keeping our eyes on them. Moving into the positioning that Phoenix Legacy effectively held earlier, and just getting so much pressure from afar. We always talk about endings, and Lightning Rod in particular, Dia, being one of the most tough ones to play, especially if you don't land here, in trying to effectively navigate and approach the distance. You've got the zips, you've got grav cannons, but trying to maintain that space. But look at Element 6. Did we get a full reset in Aurora taking on, looking to eliminate them as a threat to their rotation as well?
And Mind with an evac tower now making their way into Lightning Rod. Not a whole lot of places left to play in Lightning Rod, especially now that they're landing right underneath Vex.
Oh, we're gonna have to tune into that one for a minute. But now your winners of map number 2, pushing in, trying to essentially unseat element 6 from this map, and 9imps with a Kraber Bolt for the loadout, but they are trying to get away, effectively taking that grav cannon, and we have just about 30 seconds left before that ring starts to close, and Oirein opens it up, grabs a knock, and bye-bye element 6.
Now, with LCDF rotating over here, Aurora may have no choice but to follow them. Element 6 took the gravity cannon into 3 different squads that are playing hide on Lightning Rod, and Aurora now have to face off against the one team that wants to control the low ground, and they do it. Nice shots from Impulse. Takes down one. Aurora seem to be winning the fight, but having lost Impulse themselves, with the ring closing, time is of the essence.
And everyone's gonna start to looking to disengage, but we're just cleaning up what is already down, looking for a stabilization, a reset. Kiner just hits the ground running, and Oirein, 9imps, and Hardeki, time is of the essence. You can see the pressure coming in from the teams that are just kind of effectively chilling, okay with their positioning already in Lightning Rod, outplayed. This could be a big one for them. You also see 2R1C, UAIM, and the full English trying to get in as well.
40% worse. Got to be watching the zipline entry into Lightning Rod while full English finally make their move in using an antagonistic catwall to their advantage. Bryn gets to dip back in, make use of the gold shield to maintain uptime while Sir Dell makes the move with a Volt. Close range as heck, taking down 2.
We knew UA moved into this position, and well, now effectively being destroyed by full English. You know, you survive your contest and you make it to endgame. You have the kill leaders of the lobby. This is kind of that restart we wanted for them. But for Aurora, effectively looking for that positioning, moving towards 40% worse. It's a duo v duo.
With Mandy missing, 40% worse, cannot be too happy about the situation. Aurora do have the ability to exactly this, play these fence lines. They can stay here for quite a while. Not an easy spot to push, and most teams will be punished on their way here. They've even got the opportunity to res. This is available to both teams.
This is tough though, because 9imps is the one they're trying to get back. The Bangalore, the one that could effectively smoke out the respawn. But with the pressure for 40% worse, how are we going to navigate this with 20 seconds left? And neither of these teams being in that zone, we have to start thinking about the placement, the end game, because there's still 9 squads throughout Lightning Rod making a play. But Hardeki goes from above, sticks the res. Will we get 9imps back? Oh, and with the changes, we're gonna spawn in with our weapons. Now, granted, we won't have our attachments and no backpack and a little bit less ammo, but we don't need that. 9imps is crazy regardless.
I mean, as a 3-person squad, you can go down, take out 40% worse, and then use your death box to get the rest of it. So there is a real chance that we see full strength Aurora moving into the final ring, as they have not got a lot of time to do it. The zone is already closing. Mind, ANC outplayed, and Vex, they are the 3 squads on ultimate height. One of these 3 teams is going to have to go down as multiple other squads start making the push to actually be able to play out the final ring.
All right, Impulse back and on red, and 2R1Z starts to move, and effectively, Micey has to get the Dark Veil up, but 40% worse, they will fall, and 2R1Z might be joining them shortly. Imps making that play effectively for the high ground, the Volt is singing, and UAIM falls as well. The hipfire comes through from 9imps, and Aurora, they are just laying down chaos on this lobby.
Impulse with the super jump into Kraber hip shot. Somehow Aurora are staying alive, and not just that, they are thriving, picking up kills on the way. We still haven't seen ANC, Vexed, or Mind fall just yet, but Mind are under pressure.
Look, they're just trying to keep people off their high ground, and that's respectable, right? Playing the long game. But for the full English, just on that northernmost side of our free cam shot here, trying to just not peek, effectively do what Aurora was doing in map number 2. We don't want to extend out, use any of our resources until that inevitable collapse happens. But when you have your Watson players just kind of barricading down already in the most viable position, I see you, Andy Jax.
The full English do have probably one of the best routes to be able to make it into the end zone. There is still quite a bit of space they have to move through, but with a single Bangalore smoke, they could make their way to where the end zone is closing, a place that nobody else currently is, over by this grab cannon. They will choose to close the gap onto this building real quick, facing off against Aurora on the other side. Full English cannot take this fight, but for that part, neither can Aurora. Neither team really being able to commit as Vex looks over everything.
Well, they're kind of split, right? They've got to look at Mind, they've got to look at Aurora, and Vex just being inundated with damage here from the high ground. They're going to have to jump down into the midst, and with the Rolling Thunder completely taking advantage of them and just trying to force off the high ground. Clemmy, man, Clemmy going down, and Babylon's being the lone member left, just trying to stabilize and keep it in the game so they can get points, but outplayed. They make their appearance in the full English. They're going to take the top ground.
Aurora have moved to the outside where nobody could play earlier, but with Impulse down, Oirain and Hardeki are left on their own. 4 squads left. You have to imagine these fence lines are safe. Aurora should make it to top 2.
This is crazy because full English, they're already on 10 eliminations, but a stick comes through, and Surdell throwing out the Radiant transfer. Is it enough, or will the collapse happen? Andy Jax, the cracked player, not going to be able to keep things alive, and into the final 3 squads. The full English, they have to keep moving into the sideline, straight on towards Mind. Who is going to be able to make this happen?
Aurora's still there!
Bryn trying to do it, but Aurora take out Mind. Dia, this is cracked, and they do it again!
They get the shield swap! Aurora, the boogeyman of Game 3, constantly moving in at the edge of the ring, playing these untenable spaces and making them work. The fences were Aurora's best friend in game number 3.
Aurora, man, the confidence, welcoming in Hardeki to the roster. Back-to-back wins on Storm Point here for their first showing in year 4 ALGS. Yeah, I'm sweating. My hands, bro. This is crazy.
That was so cool. That was so cool, the way that they used that. Like, the presence of mind to play fences, not once, but twice. And also, like, be in such a terrible position, but also make it out. It was incredible from Aurora, but I cannot let this take away from Full English either, because Full English have had an awful start to the day, and to be able to pull out a 2nd place the very first time they survived the contest, it's amazing.
It is amazing, and it's very similar to kind of how we witnessed. Now, I'm going to bring up a team that's obviously not in EMEA, Optic Gaming. They had a really slow start on Storm Point, but then they kind of started to get their momentum, and moving into World's Edge, they were able to finish, I believe it was in top 5 for the day. So Full English, I'm looking at you to kind of have that revenge on the lobby and do that for yourself, and double-digit eliminations have to really help your chances move up that leaderboard. But Aurora, man, even after losing out on 9 Impulse, Dia, well played, because we know Lightning Rod are some of the most atrocious end games. They hit the res, they bring them back, they take one of the craziest rotations into endgame and just start chowing everything, looking for high ground, and to be able to find stability in the chaos. I'm loving this new roster.
This was a really big redemption game for a lot of teams. I'm going to bring another one into the conversation. ANC Outplayed, who managed to make their way into Final Zone. We will take a look at probably the biggest play that we saw, the pivotal moment, shall we, of this most recent game, where Aurora did take their fight up against LCDF over by this gravity cannon, lost a member on the way in, but then, as you were talking about, against all odds, got Impulse back into the game.
I mean, look, I was talking about it. I've seen some crazy plays out of them in scrims, specifically from 9 Impulse, but coming through, and this is the one in particular when things start to get a little wild, gets the Kraber back, immediately puts the pressure onto it, the no-scope, the burn, a little salt in the wound, Dia.
He's crazy. He's like...
He's a crazy man.
It's just a mechanical blessing that was even able to happen. And we did see this from the other perspective. Watching ANC Outplayed go out, trying to fire through the fence at no one, because Oirain was a ghost in the last ring. Ultimately just waiting for the rest of the lobby to play out, taking peeks where they could, and then moving in for an easy 3rd, 4th party. Aurora really did make that last Lightning Rod zone look so simple.
Ooh, and as we get the stats, just from that last match, Oirein on 7, Impulse on 3, which makes sense. You know, you did go out a little early and then you went out again, but it doesn't matter. You still got that no scope in there. And Hardeki on 5. What is that, 16 eliminations and a massive amount of damage?
Yeah, this is a really big game for them, and it's funny that we mention Impulse's like falling behind a little bit in the kills because he is the one going down first, and it's really good that they have them on Bangalore for that exact reason. Impulse is meant to go out to distract, and so while it may not look good on paper, this is working exactly as Aurora intended, to be able to have somebody that is extending out, that is looking for cheeky plays and trying to get a little greedy with space, while Oirein and Hardeki can always back that game plan up.
And they backed it up indeed. You think back to that kind of last fight as a duo, Hardeki going in, took minimal damage in that endgame situation once we get to top 3, and the collapse started in a 27-point game for map number 3. I can only imagine when we pull up the series results kind of after looking at this, what that is going to play onto it.
Full English, second place. If you looked at me after the first 2 games and told me it was going to happen, I wouldn't have believed you, but here we are. Really nicely played from them, and Mind, I think, quite silently moving their way in as well. It was a nice place to play, right underneath the top building of Lightning Rod that ended up working in their favor. And while I want to give love to ANC Outplayed for having a resurgence as well, Vex stands out to me because they should have placed higher.
Yeah, 2R1C though still grabbing a bunch of eliminations as well, and Element 6 grabbing 6 before inevitably getting into that engagement with Aurora on that late game, and their rotation essentially getting scuffed. But let's go ahead and come back, because there's some people that I would love to welcome back. Stella, Zephyr, I mean, like, what were your thoughts on that? Zephyr was back there typing, and he's like, oh my god, is this happening? This is crazy.
Yeah, I'll let Zephyr go first because he's I know he has a lot to say right now, and I can see that he is just raring to go. So go ahead, Zephyr.
Okay. I will say the amount of statistics behind the scenes here that puts Aurora at the top are absurd. The level of damage that this roster currently is at 12.5, the nearest team being at 8K. That is a 4K difference between them and UAIM. On top of that, this gets even more insane. Hardeki currently has taken the most damage in the game at 3,000, but he leads at the 3rd most damage differential of any player currently in the lobby. He is literally doing so much damage and taking it and then some. How are Aurora not punished?
I think they're just really able to use that chaos to their advantage, which is great. I mean, listen, Oirein did say that they have great wipes, and boy, did they. All right, well, Tiff, thank you so much for casting the last few games. We're going to let you have a little break, get some water, get some stretches in. And in the meantime, we are going to be able to get into the mind of a pro and get his pro perspective. We are going into an interview with Graceful. I am so excited to talk to you. Hey, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we haven't seen you since
yeah.
Champs. We saw you play last week. Yeah, so how are you feeling about the season?
We kind of had a slow start personally, so but I feel great about the competitive season starting up again, and it's the whole year 4 and everything. Every roster is looking through changes. Everybody's looking strong. That's why you see right now on the leaderboard, all the teams that people aren't expecting are performing. So yeah, I'm super hyped, ready to go back at it again tomorrow for me.
For my part, Graceful, I'm curious to pick your mind as a player, because we've seen a lot of contests that have not benefited either team. Notably, E6 has 2 POIs, which I don't think is doing anyone any favors. But with Phoenix Legacy splitting Checkpoint right now, they're the team that I want to focus on, because they had pretty bad loot in game number 1 and were forced onto like a Jurassic high ground. Game 2, they were able to play out of Cedo Station. But when you're splitting a POI like that, what are the ways that teams, not just Phoenix Legacy, but even teams like them,
All right, well, we're having a little bit of a mic issue here, but I hope we can get more insight on Graceful's thoughts. I'm glad that he kind of gave us a little bit more of a structure on how they're taking it a little bit slower, right, Zephyr? Okay. I guess we're having a little bit of trouble, so we're going to go on a little quick break, and when we come back, hopefully we've got all the content that you've been waiting for right here. Don't go anywhere. All right, we are back. Apologies for the slight delay, but you know how things are. We're all human and things happen. But you know what? I'm here with Tiff, and you know what? Let's go ahead and go back into the last game and talk about that crazy last circle.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, and honestly, let's be real. I just wanted more time on air. It's been a good day, and welcome back to ALGS, everyone. But you're right, Aurora. Man, look, Hardeki, this trio is looking insane. And I was kind of talking about, would we see some northern zones on Storm Point after kind of almost two of the same rotations early on in map number 1 and map number 2 for Aurora in particular, because they start out kind of in Cenote Cave. So thinking about them having the longest journey to get to Lightning Rod, and through the trials, the tribulations, losing out on 9 imps early, getting them back in. Now, this is a trio, now bringing in Hardeki for the newest, that is no stranger to very last minute reses in game and converting them into wins. And they did it again.
Yeah, I honestly thought that was the most impressive part. I mean, playing the edge of circle, making sure to stay out of sight. And you know what? It's true. When you're out of sight, you're out of mind, especially in these final circles, just because there is so much action happening. So talk to me about this res and kind of, do you think that more pro players in end circles should be going for that res, even if they're one person out?
Now, it's kind of interesting that you say that, because the team that I'm going to bring up actually isn't in this matchup. It's going to be Vamokiera, right? You got Kishera, who plays a lot of crypto, specifically on World's Edge, and most notorious to getting those last-minute reses. But for a team that doesn't have that, well, being able to make it happen. And Stella, look at this. Is it me and you for Game 4?
I think it is. Let's strap in and get ready. We are in the dropship, and we are changing maps over to the beloved World's Edge.
Ooh, and as we switch up, all of the things that we're expecting to see locked in, loaded, our Pallane line, kind of going from the southeastern to the northwestern, but relatively central. And with the zone going through, we turn our eyes towards Harvester. It's a Cybercats Vex contest, and well, Fako already down. Doesn't matter, because the trades are coming through.
Yeah, Babylon's here just taking a slight moment to shield up, and we do see a res coming through. Oh, yeah, trying to, but maybe baiting it, because we do see Cybercates on the way, trying to work it, and we do see a fuse play out here. Love to see that, Tiff.
Ooh, a fuse for contest. It makes sense. Now, granted, I've also seen Cybercats break out the caustic, but for now, Ranch is down and out. Will this duo be able to clutch it up? The issue with this being a relatively central POI and extending out the contest, knowing that the zone kind of is going to pull Southern, teams will start that rotation in. So you really need to get this going. But for Babylon's, the EVA 8 out. The Fuse doing the job. Knuckle Clusters coming through and Clemmy goes down. Babylon's last standing and Cybercats effectively. This is a win for them.
Yeah, and this is a smart play from Babylon's just choosing to leave because, like you said, a lot of teams are going to start rotating, and Harvester is a point that a lot of teams are going to have to bypass. So either you need to finish up your fight now or get out of town, and that is exactly what Babylon's is doing right now as the last member of his team.
But we pull on over to the inevitable. We were talking about the potential for this contest over in Skyhook, LCDF in Element 6, and well, Izadon's already got a knock on to Cracked and goes back to the high ground to join up alongside Tyner. Psycop still from the mid-level of the Central, trying to put pressure. But for now, this is going to be kind of a stalemate before the action picks up.
Yeah, we often see contests in this area, especially when you take that middle ground. You do end up being at a stalemate for a while just because you have to find loot. You have to maintain that angle. So there's not a lot that both teams can do. And I really want Element 6 to be able to win their contest because we haven't really seen them very much. They were 11th place last we saw.
Yeah, it's definitely been really tough for them moving off that kind of Storm Point match for Lightning Rod ending. They want to go through it, but Izadon just cuts their chances down. LCDF, the battle of the French for Case Winnie and the French roster of LCDF, and they reign supreme. Not a bad showing here for LCDF. Now, the reset coming through, they're able to grab that cargo bot, hit it on Legendary, grab some well-needed loot. But as we move to where that zone is pulling, for the teams that land Lava Siphon, 07, you're gonna have a nice rotate into launch site and look for kind of that priority rotation into this, because this is where things can start getting mixy. But 07, you've got to be able to find your place here and stabilize and hold the fort down.
Yeah, it looks like they are looking for a fight here. I mean, listen, it is now game number 4, so we're going to be seeing people get maybe a little bit more aggressive, but also teams that want to play a little bit more reserved. We're going to see those styles clash quite a bit. I mean, last match, we saw a lot of teams slowing down, avoiding fights because they wanted to get that placement. But you know what? KP is just as important, and we do see a lot more teams who feel confident after 3 games and the map switch, trying to find those fights.
A team that's going to need to start feeling confident is 202, coming into match number 4, the first one onto World's Edge in 16th place, and already in a bit of a scuffle here. But now the 3-man stack into the stairway, immediate Radiant transfer, but the flank from behind is going to be the thorn in the side for Raka Faka as he falls and is fully eliminated, thus relegating 202 to a duo here against Red Dragon.
Yeah, this is a dicey looking situation, especially since Red Dragon does have that horizon, and 4M is doing whatever he can, but he might get taken out here, even in Bangalore's smoke. And it's just down to the last member, the Bloodhound, playing the shield here, but it's going to be a really tough fight.
Ooh, get a shield swap in and turn your tides to the remaining members of Red Dragon. You get the information via the scan and, well, just trying to play positioning here. It's going to take about 8 seconds there to pop off a med kit, and you only have one, and the pressure comes through and it connects. Able to turn this into a 1v1, 5 seconds until you can get back into the fight. How will this work off screen? UAIM has fallen, but for now, Aziel reigning just a little bit more into it.
I love that we whisper like we're trying not to avoid, we're trying to avoid giving away their position, but look at them trying to go in after. I mean, now is the time if you want to go in. You can't hesitate in competitive Apex because that is going to be your downfall. And we do see here Ozzy trying to go in, but not wanting to push first. Does get the crack. Is he going to be able to down his opponent here? We are going to come in with the 30-30. No, you never switch out to your secondary. He almost had that, but is now eliminated.
Wow, can we just talk about that for a moment? Because Red Dragon was effectively going in to that 1v1 with a Havoc. Now, the Havoc has made a comeback here despite recent nerfs to a lot of those SMG weapons. And with 202 looking to have that inevitable kind of first start on the 1v1, the hipfire of the 30-30 is just not going to connect. And the Havoc, a lot of people have been talking about the double AR meta that we've seen happen a lot in North America. And at a hipfire, once that thing starts raring up, You love to see it. Red Dragon live to see another day, and 07 looking to try and get into some information here for the team, inevitably on the inside, and that's going to be ANC outplayed, and Andy Jax with some impeccable Watson fences for structure.
I was going to say, look at that. That is a fortress that is not going to be easily penetrated. And we see here the circle pulling to the bottom. Tiff, what do you make of this?
Look, it's going to be really interesting. We've been seeing a lot of zones that typically do pull to launch site, and a lot of the things that I'm going to be looking at are for the teams that are effectively very north, LCDF, Aurora, and how they're going to effectively navigate into that zone. It comes through and pulls out towards the right of launch site, thus making that building and positioning for the full English really vital. But it's very similar to kind of what we were talking about with Phoenix Legacy and map number 2, playing that building effectively dead center of zone. Yes, it's great, but is it sustainable?
Yeah, we also see Made in Heaven, a team that we've been seeing perform incredibly out of their minds today, also in circle and playing perfectly with rotation. 07, they actually did end up going inside this building with the Watson fences, but they are struggling to find a straight pathing to their enemy.
Here go Nags, Nasky, and Amphi. 07 looking to try and effectively peek around, gather information, but they really want this positioning. And effectively, look at that. ANC outplayed, forced to maneuver just a little bit further out. And as we kind of get the free cam shot to see, taking as much space away from outplayed effectively will be 07's key to success here.
Yeah, we see them getting spread quite a bit out. They're not wanting to fully commit. And this is what we did mention with them playing a little bit slower. No one wants to be taken out this early with 17 squads left. I mean, we are just in it for the long haul now.
In it to win it, in it for the long haul, all of the ways. And Willem peeks, gets peppered, gets punished, but forced to heal with only one shield bat. After this, we gotta get the Jenny down from Andy Jax. We have to start kind of prioritizing our resources, but we connect. We get the opening moment that we needed. Willem takes down Nags and is now swarming around 07, but a good reinforcement is able to stave off that push for a little bit longer, but it's going to be Nasky, the last one standing, and Andy Jax with the clutch, but the third party is a real thing. ESG wants to get involved.
Absolutely, and this is what happens, especially in World's Edge, where if your fights go on a little too long, of course you're going to have another uninvited party, but it seems like ESG is not able to quite get in here, so they're going to back away for the time being, and that seems to be it for this area, and OP is going to be able to recover.
Look, that's respectable. If you can kind of fend off that initial third-party push and look to stabilize, that's a win for Outplayed. And meanwhile, Denze and a Kraber putting pressure onto 2R1C, who's just trying to rotate into launch site through this choke. And now Passion currently in the backside of Tree, looking for any late rotators throughout, but as Ring 2 continuously closing, we've got about 55 seconds until Passion will have to make their move. And how will they choose to do it? We think of evac towers, we think of just kind of walking it in, but regardless, let's pick up some KP first.
Yeah, so while we're here, I want to talk about how they've been picking up the Volt more often. We've seen the Volts being used a lot today, and I have to ask Tiff, what is your take on the weapon, and do you personally love using it?
Personally, I love the Volt. The Volt just got pulled out of the crafter alongside the R301, which is why you're seeing it being picked up a lot more. But before we get there, Denze misses on that Kraber shot. Go Next and LCDF have made their appearance here into Tree, and now we see the Bangles coming through the Grav lift to push the issue into Tree. And is done after winning the contest, look to take their battles elsewhere, grabbing that opening knock onto Yakyu and trying to finish it out, but the Ring is at their back, and yes, they'll be able to live here, but effectively things will get a little bit more dicey for this squad, but they barricade on through.
Yeah, and you really want to start paying attention to where you are in the circle, because it'll be very easy for you to get caught out and get targeted by other teams. And we do see Go Next trying to take some pot shots at a team rotating in right now.
Yeah, and they can definitely live here, but to go back onto your point, oh, wait, more Kraber action. Let me see it. Come on, Denze. Smoke and run, Zero's down. We are now a rat and effectively just trying to live like in the Matrix, dodging all of the bullets, but can they do it? So far, so good. But the energy weapons, they're making a return. You think about the damage nerf that we saw from the car and the R99 kind of just ticking down. Oh, the knuckle cluster comes through and it's just ticking. And here comes the appearance. Passion eliminated by none other than Cybercats.
Unfortunate for them, but the dodge work was on point. We'll be real. LCDF here in a skirmish just outside of tree does end up taking down one other person and taking back high ground, but they get caught in the Horizon ultimate. And I don't know if this is going to work out in their favor. Go Next, looking really strong, trying to finish off the opposite team.
LCDF has fallen. Go Next made their appearance, currently in 8th place, but still wanting to climb up that leaderboard and looking for more. But now we need to turn our tides on how we're going to get into launch side and inevitably even further out into the open towards Dome. So we have to start thinking of our rotational options, and with multiple teams kind of already congesting into that area, you're turning your sights to 40% worse, who still have to make it in as well, and they're inevitable. The villains of, well, they're not really villains. They're some good guys, but Forge.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting fight here with the low and high ground and the one trailer that the team seems to be stuck in, which is an unfortunate situation. And it's just an all-out battle for this one spot, trying to get any angles that he can. Shiv trying and absolutely destroying with the hollow sight.
The double time coming through, giving Shiv the speed boost, but the ring is ticking away the damage from afar, and Surdell with a 30-30 able to cut down Shiv before he can effectively get to where he wants. But look who is here. It's Aurora, and they want the space, they want the KP. They are just having a banger day, and they want to carry on that momentum.
Yeah, and I want to point out that this is how you play Circle. You guard and you make sure all the teams making mistakes are absolutely punished. Aurora and Red Dragon fighting for this contest, this area here, and it's not going to look great. Red Dragon is on the lower ground, but somehow they have a great angle on Aurora.
Taking some initial knocks on to Forge. It's Jay Savage who will be at the losing end of this engagement, but a good smoke forward with the Digi threat to try and poise around this. But rotating into the ring to effectively find a cheeky angle is what is making Red Dragon look so good right now. But for the zone that we're pulling to, this is going to be very, very interesting, and we need to start kind of prioritizing our rotation to how we're going to get there. But before that, 9 Impulse. Okay, keep going. Slayers will be at the losing end of that, but not before Forge Phoenix able to make that happen. But Oirain with the hip fires. Can Hardeki clutch it up with the bolt? He does. Hardeki, man, this roster, the reset to come through, we have mere seconds, so you have to think about the time that it's going to take to hit the reses, and we're just going to chain them immediately together and Go Next. Man, we're still alive there in the corner over there, huh?
Yeah, but who knows for how long, because Vex has their eye on them and are trying to push for them immediately. And of course, Go Next is eliminated. Unfortunately, they only had that small box to operate in.
Vex over here hitting the reset, but Aurora making a play. They take the zip, they look, they see it's occupied, they immediately drop down onto the low ground. But look at this. This is where it's really smart, and I love that we caught that on main. Oirain drops the gold shield for 9 imps and some syringes to be able to chain that together and effectively get up to speed on that healing way quickly. The synergy between this team is just so dominating, and that is why we talk about how they're aggressive, but not only that, but they're freaking smart.
They are incredibly smart. Look at this rotate, avoiding all of the angles and making sure that they aren't going to get caught up. But again, Red Dragon getting in the way, but I believe we have a listen in ready for you right now, so we're going to go ahead and listen in.
Can you pin? Look at zone, boys. Can we get the fins?
Shield.
We have to shoot at this.
We'll get them.
Team is shooting from left. I'm batting.
Get the
kills on it.
We will get them, chill. Just keep poking for kills.
I'm being looked at by all 3 now. Top 7.
Killed one.
I lost a bat.
That's fine.
Underneath. I'm not sure how many's up on the right.
At least 2.
Okay, we hold.
Give me 1 as well. We're in literal god spot. We're safe inside eggshell as well.
Yeah, we just have to watch left.
What about
left is our only worry. Can you help Art tax on it?
Yep.
I got 30 heavy. I'm just gonna look right.
Yeah, I have 45.
It might be a solo Horizon to be honest.
Bang has
No, it's not.
wingman.
It's
The
a
bang
fuse
has
team.
wingman.
Yeah.
Underneath. Going for loot, Snag.
Right side is gonna. What?
100 under the bridge. Cracks him, right here. You got a swap.
Yeah,
These guys are trying to shoot you guys.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
your back.
No, that's not good. That's not good. You blocked all my OS. Don't do that.
No, but our stack size angles for sure. Crack one
Bombing
again.
left. I got red.
Oh, right side shooting me. I'm healing.
Someone's getting
I
EMP.
got smoked. I got smoked.
Yeah,
Look, attacks.
I'm looking left. They've not moved
I
yet.
got
They're selling this
can't
one.
see.
Focus left.
Maybe
can't see
bang
a
them.
thing.
They're running out now. Bang them, Snag. Bang them, please.
I'm coming. No, they're
Bang
shooting.
in
They're
the
in
open. They're banging it.
I got
Right
open.
side.
They're fighting you. They're fighting us. They're fighting us. We have to fight. White side's gonna wrap us. No. Can we back? Go back. We bang
Okay,
open.
okay, I'm going back.
We're gonna shot at the back. This team is fighting us.
There's an ult. No, I'm
White
dead.
side.
Chill.
I'm dead. They're fitting me. Bang's just fitting me.
Come into eggshell. Nade, sure.
They're dying in the open to launch side team right now.
Snag, we're safe here. Come back.
Right side's gonna fight.
Rats on me. Come to me.
We're gonna get sent. We're
not. They don't.
Is that your control? That's not ours.
No, come. Get in here. Crouch in here. Just hold this.
Alright,
We're
this
fine,
is
bro.
good, this is
We're
good.
fine.
The Bang and the Horizon team are dying.
This is fine, bro. Chill. Top 4. Swinging.
four.
On us. Conjure ulti.
No, don't have it.
Do it.
Horizon dead.
Nice. Chill. Go back.
I'm
Back out.
with you.
Yeah. They're just fucking spamming. Fucked. Nade.
I'm healing. We have a knock on it. Nade on ult.
They haven't rezzed.
Yeah, they can't. I have no heals left.
No,
Chill.
he
Yes,
can't.
great.
On me's good.
I'm
good.
healing.
On me.
You have to peek. Don't let him red.
They're getting pushed.
Yeah, they're getting fucked. You can't smoke, bro. I don't have digi. I have no heals too. Chill. Play ready.
The rest.
Play ready.
The Horizon died to burn.
Yeah. Put yours.
Peeking us.
I'm dead. Craven.
Knock down.
Top 3.
Top 3.
Chill. Knocks on. Crouch in the corner. Nice try.
I got top 3.
Nice try. Top
8
3.
points. I couldn't go back.
Oh my goodness, how intense. The clear comms, even in the states of panic. Absolute goats here, Tiff.
Talk about goats. Well, let's talk about Cybercats because they have the space, they have the angles, and they want to take down the full English. We wanted to see this go through. They started in Harvester with that initial contest and are trying to clean things up, but with Sir Del on the wingman trying to inevitably sway the odds in their favor, it is going to be the Cats that are able to take down the IGL of Noises and being able to reinforce with the Radiant transfer. Cybercats, they take map 4.
Oh my goodness, what a match. They were absolutely bullying all the teams in that tiny circle outside of that region. And my goodness, they were able to play their position so well. And with a Fuse, Horizon, and Conduit play. I love to see this.
Look, you gotta have the Fuse for the contest. You gotta have Conduit in some way, shape, or form, and Horizon for a lot of the versatility and movement. Well done by Cybercats. They were one of my biggest questions because I watch a lot of scrims throughout the week, more in particular those EMEA scrim watch parties that Greek does. Shout out, homie. I love that you do that because let me just tell you, the saddest thing I've ever heard Greek say is Cybercats eliminated. You can't say that this time, Greek. You can't say that this time.
I mean, they do say cats have 9 lives, and we clearly saw that in play today here, especially in this match. And their Horizon play style, figure out how exactly they want to change their team pushes. But yeah, not looking so great for Element 6 right now as they were eliminated out in 20th place. And UAIM also
That's true. We do have that new winner. Let's look at kind of the top 3, the damage, the eliminations. And although Made in Heaven had Godspot, you're there listening, only one elimination was able to reign supreme from that, but they did put up an exponential amount of damages. But for the full English, we were so excited to see them get that second place on that final match of Stormpoint, carry that momentum forward. And Sir Del, I don't know what's in the water for the Watsons that are just absolutely cracked. 5 eliminations for them. But more importantly, Cybercats on the 11, 3,600 damage, a banger first game for World's Edge.
Yeah, what a great way to kick off World's Edge. And we are getting told by Zephyr that Full English after that game are now second place for KP.
Wow.
Now we are looking at the series results so far for match day 2, and Aurora sitting in first place with 67 points, followed by second place Made in Heaven at 37.
That 30-point points differential is insane. But I'm so glad we got to see the first 4 games for ANC go the way of Aurora, the full English, with 35 points, knowing that they lost out on that initial contest in Stormpoint at Zoo Station. We even had that listening, and it was sounding so chaotic, but to bounce back from that and put the points down on the board, second for KP, that is one of the craziest comebacks I've seen in a while.
It is incredible what these pro players
Hello and welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series here in EMEA. We just finished off our first game on World's Edge after the first half being on Stormpoint and Zephyr. It was a big turnaround for the Cyber Kittens, but they weren't the only team that we were looking at. Made in Heaven also had a wonderful game 4.
Then they've come out on top now and are competing for a top 5 position. Speaking of competing, though, not just our players here, but for the folks at home, the ALGS offers the Split 1 Challenger Circuit. The registration still hasn't closed here. You guys can get yourself together with a team, jump into a roster, and compete these upcoming weekends, February 3rd through 5th, and potentially find yourself a spot among these pros.
I know we're talking about Made in Heaven right now, but match day 1, it was all about ANC outplayed, and guess what? Same story there. The Challenger Circuit into Pro League has produced monstrous teams that are really, really difficult for especially some of our squads that have been around here for a while, or IGLs that are trying to stay on top of the competition to actually keep ahead of, because you are constantly, especially in Challenge Circuit, competing against people who are going through these really long tournaments who are mechanically just at the top of their game, and that is where we ultimately culminate to now in the Pro League, where you have people who are not just really good at pressing their buttons, but really smart on top of it all. We've had 4 games of crazy action, and I want to talk a little bit about the smarts that it took for Cybercats to actually walk away with last game's effort, because they made mention of it on the broadcast. Tiff and Stella were both wondering at this fuse, and it's cool to see it getting used on World's Edge.
We've slowly started to see the fuse notably sneak into the fray when it comes to compositions in North America, but EMEA has left us a little tired and sad without the pickup really appearing. This is the first time after day one we've actually gotten the opportunity to take a look at it, and notably it comes out of the Cybercats, a team who was playing last week. So a lot of great zoning control, a lot of great pressure, and you see that come into play in how free Cybercats were allowed to walk up, take high ground, and win our Game 4.
Now we'll see how Game 5 plays out as we drop in once again. Now that we're approaching the back half of the day, getting down to the final 2 games, the pressure's really on, especially for teams that have been losing contests so far. We get back to another one in Harvester with the Cybercats currently on top, taking out the first member of Vex. Zanya using the triple take as almost a shotgun.
If you remember Ranches and crew from rosters previously, Harvester is their home here. Vex have snuck in. They've found the backdoor key and are trying to take this one away, but this is a team that knows this best. Already with knockdown and a push out from Vex, it's likely that they hold this spot dominantly now.
Now, this wasn't the only contest that I want to keep our eyes on. We've also got up north where Element 6 are relegated out of Game 5. Les Cités de France end up taking them down, and it's so early on into the game, this will hardly impact the rotation.
This is, I mean, we're not even talking about the earliest moments right off a drop. LCDF make their rotation out from the east, and they easily come out in that 3v3. This is a discussion we had before the games even started today, and I'll be honest with you, Dia, in my discussions with E6 behind the scenes, they were kind of brushing this one off like it was no sweat, but the scrim results are congruent. Cités de France are coming out on top.
And I mean, so much now that, they were able to do it so quickly that it should still leave Les Cités de France with plenty of time to rotate on their own schedule, not being infringed upon by other teams, and importantly being able to follow up on, say, forwards that are just now moving on through landslide should they choose to. Mind, take a small engagement, do get shot in the back a little bit, and now, even with a Watson caught between a rock and a hard place, have got nowhere to go.
Yolu on the way outside is able to take down Lufka for the 1v1 situation here. The slide out, bounce against the wall, damage hurt to the side with an L-Star, and Electrify Steel find their way back to a gray screen.
It was really, really close, but the Eva helping out at the very end means that Mind get to stay in the game in another ruthless southern zone. We did look at the map briefly, but just the fact that we are going back down over to launch site means that we get to run back a lot of the same rotations again.
For many of these teams, it's going to be an experience that they hopefully can learn from, notably 07. One of those rosters that I'm really looking to at least find their resurgence here. They've shown that they can stand up against the test of times in what was A and B. Here in the C, though, like I said before we went to break, cold engines.
07, with the fortifications that they currently have, should be having plenty of time to rev those up, shall we say, Zephyr. Get themselves going a little bit for the late game. It is still going to be really difficult with the level of shields that they have, with the loot that they're currently working with, but you got a little bit lucky on a few picks, and perhaps you're able to get some death boxes going and turn that into an even bigger game. This is in large part a slower game, though, as Game 5 tends to be. It's Game 6 where we see teams really panicking, worrying about how many points they're going to put up. This should be our most conservative one so far, as yes, we've dropped 2 teams, but in large part other squads that are sitting, say, in launch site or even on late rotations in are choosing to avoid each other. Even teams like Red Dragon and 202 that we saw clash at Stacks in game number 1.
With these teams now with a little bit more time on their belt to readdress maybe some of their better setup, we'll see some changes. One, though, that doesn't differ is, of course, the Cybercats making a reappearance here towards the south side of launch site, trying to fight their way in, and this is the best time to do it. We talk about these positions as they become contested through the embers of this south side in late game, and if you're down somewhere on this low ground, it's usually incredibly punishing. So, well, I don't know if every building ahead is available. They still try to extend. Notably, that's not their Dark Veil there, so actually pressured 07 out quite well, and they're gonna get Nasky back.
Big part of Cybercat's game plan is to do with the ult excel that they just dropped. They initially had to use Fuse ult just to stay alive, and now actually need to make use of it in order to get themselves off of the low ground. With Passion coming in, another ultimate gets expended by the Cybercats to hold off the push, keep them from having to deal with the potential of a third party until much later. They need to get settled in launch site, and that means time. Passion are going to give them exactly that, moving out through tree, because really, Passion aren't looking for a zone place to play. They're looking for kills out of this particular choke.
And they've done well enough. They know now they extend, wait out those ultimates, and then now readdress these positionings. For Cybercats, it's answered. They do have that building available. So, well, yes, they extend in terms of the cooldowns. They will be available to get those back as we talk about round 1, 2, and 3, which in the end maybe could fall towards the exterior. Go next to R1C. They hold hands out here towards our southwest.
I'm glad to see them running the Fuse, even if it comes in air quotes at the cost of a conduit. Seeing Go Next use Fuse just reminds me of how well they were able to do with that particular pick at Split 2 playoffs year 3. For the moment, the amount of harassment that Fuse is able to provide has really been tangible, especially on a map like this where people tend to be clustered really close together. World's Edge doesn't let you control the same amount of space as, say, Stormpoint does when Aurora were doing really well. Instead, it's favoring teams that can sit in buildings and try and get a little bit cheeky, if not dominate the whole lobby.
And in moments like these, Zanya will prove exactly why that Fuse sings here. Just a quick knuckle cluster to the dome forces Passion down to the low ground into a spot which I do worry for them. I know we talked a lot about the edge and potential play there, but the positions where they were in terms of transition are now held by the Forge. This is something that they're going to have to inevitably deal with if the Forge opts to come through this choke, and then in the end, they don't take that fight extremely clean. It doesn't go all the way their side. Cybercats 07, they just get to free peek.
Now, there may be the option for, say, an evac tower from Forge, some other way to get around Passion, but typically when we move over to launch site, you'll see teams playing even further south than the launch site buildings even extend, and that's not really a possibility in this game. We may have some squads that sit underneath the Mind or try and share a building with them, ultimately to the death of both, but for the moment, all the positions in launch site that you can realistically play and sustainably play have been taken. Passion really taking the last one, if we even want to call it that, for without a Watson, you really can't hold underneath like that.
Now, something I do want to bring up here is you just barely see at the top of the screen is Aurora. Just starting to foot their way out of Monument here, and this has given me a lot of those, at least feelings of the previous iteration of this roster and what was Fire Beavers. Most folks don't know this, but the Beavers had the slowest rotating times of any roster on World's Edge, and even with just a slight change to hard decky, the callouts don't seem to change. They are an edge preferential team that are continuing to extend their time in these zones as long as they can to get themselves looted, crafted, and set up before they start to take these fights.
Not a whole lot of crafters left on the way in. Harvester, the last one before Lava Siphon, where things are going to get a lot more difficult. 40% worse. Do sit there for the moment, as they have been a slow rotating team through all of today, trying to take fights around the edge, and yet not really finding active positions from which to do so. Take this one, for example, as up on these fences, 40% worse can poke at other people, but they can't really start fights in any tangible way, and ultimately we'll have to move down to launch site with everyone else, facing up against teams like Phoenix Legacy and the Full English.
Now for 2R1C, they make quick moves out towards Thermal, but this is a team that usually likes to make their way into hard zone. The fact that they're contesting for evac on the exterior of Lava Siphon is unusual for a team that usually holds heavy presence. I mean, that's the reason why they sit in the top 5 right now, where a majority of their placement comes from.
It's especially weird because they came from Thermal. Like, 2R1C did not have to take the slow rotate, but in doing so, have opted into a much more chaotic game for themselves, perhaps feeling like getting into launch site was a little bit too risky, a few too many unknowns. They exposed themselves to a different kind of risk, and are yet another team running Fuse, where, especially on Edge, while still useful, I don't feel that Fuse shines nearly as much.
No, it capitalizes, like you said in the early game, on those buildings and holding strong positions in zone control, which is something that 2R1C are going to have to struggle with as they try to fight for positions in. Meanwhile, this feels a lot like deja vu with, of course, the Cité de France here in the midst of Tree. Last time around, good pushes onto Mind and Crew allowed them to take this position away, but was then a push onto Go Next that saw them faltering. Thankfully, I think this time around they're a lot more respectful in terms of the movement.
I have a feeling in my gut, Zephyr, and the feeling in my gut is just that this in Tree, this is not good for anybody. Nobody is benefiting from this position. Take a look at your maps and draw a straight line down from 40% worse and a straight line east from Go Next. That's where everyone is going. On this next ring close, nobody is moving into launch site through this choke point that Passion hold. Everyone knows that's a death sentence, and it means we will have a knockdown, drag-out brawl on the northern side of this POI that'll involve 4, if not more, teams.
And notably, as we take a look at that next zone in particular, the western side is incredibly punishing this time around. Sometimes you get to play a little bit of the outside of that choke over towards the pillars, and that can sustain teams for a little bit longer. We're going deep inside the launch site. That's something that comes back to punish these rosters, as they don't really have a place to foot for space. Meanwhile, Dia, Aurora, a team that extends their time on the outskirts, just barely are starting to work their way in the zone, and now we might begin to see them fight here.
It's problematic too, because Red Dragon do have to rotate into Aurora. They don't have a choice. 202 hold the high ground by Dome, as we saw just briefly behind them. So with Red Dragon and Aurora ostensibly having to clash and on low ground in the open, Aurora have to not just win a fight, but rotate through a bunch of open space in order to survive. Fortunately, it will be against a weakened Red Dragon who did try and to make their way back, but with Vex now appearing on the low ground, it is a 3-way team battle on the eastern side of the ring, and that's to say nothing of the chaos we already foreshadowed on the west.
This might be good, though, for Aurora. Vex potentially weakening those out in front of them here, as they are now picked off from behind. Just ahead, Aurora instantly dropping Clemmy. Faco not looking much better. It is just Babylon, the one who extended for these heavy rotations to breed this one through. Irene looking low, but able to stick the battery as the rest of the team cleans it up. 202 from response, but this swing from Aurora!
He's just getting ganked from behind. It does leave everything in the hands of Hardeki, and what we have seen Hardeki clutch up before. In this particular position, committing onto the low ground does not seem worth the risk, and he's going to head for the hills. The cleanup does happen on the low ground as Red Dragon go down. 2R1C meet their fate as well, and Vex are still somehow alive on low ground, even popping up to try and finish off Hardeki with the L-Star at close range. Babylons will do it. Aurora are down, and now Vex, having 5 KP to their names, will back up onto the low ground and pray that nobody notices.
With 202, though, in that northern vicinity, Dia, I think it is clear as day. Babylon's there, stuck from behind, as Miss Kim making impressions already, finding at least 100 on the back end. A zip, though, and a wall does provide some cover, but we know for a fact the full English and, of course, LCDF on the other side, capitalizing.
And LCDF did end up winning this whole western side debacle from Tree. They picked up most of the kills, have managed to hold out in the truck, even get access to a crafter that dropped into the map late. And now, with an evac tower to make your way in, it's not just the full angles that can benefit. LCDF should be able to do this as well, moving into launch site just in time. Both these squads are going to have to hope that they're able to find some meager position, because as we already said, launch site is very much occupied, and LCDF have not found themselves very welcome.
No, we talked about this incredibly early on with Passion playing the underground stairwell position. They'll look for great pushes, and they'll find the damage that they need here. A double knock on the counter side shot, and for LCDF are done in dust in 11. It is only Denze, but just as it happens, Cybercats look to punish, look to take advantage. It's almost verbatim.
That fuse ult working as intended. Just lay down the fire and watch from above. Cybercats are waiting for these kills to come to them, and 07 are doing much the same thing on the opposite side of this bridge. With a tentative position in zone, Cybercats still have cover to work with. 07 should have picked up and did pick up just a few kills on Passion. Both teams playing actively in this ring, and Cats getting a little bit more active as they look down on ANC outplayed.
It's a good start with Andy Jax, our leader in terms of presence on that team from last week, eliminated, but it's these shots from across that make it oh so difficult for the likes of OP. A great move from Alonzi over here to take advantage of these angles, and heck, even a knuckle cluster from across the bend there, which barely didn't wipe out Willow.
Alonzi not going to be able to see anything for now, but whether or not you can take out Willem, the focus should be on the rotation ahead. 30 seconds left on this ring, and an especially difficult rotate for every team in the lobby, notably with this going as far south as it is. A few teams in that building, teams like Mind, Phoenix Legacy should be okay. You know who else should be able to be okay is 07.
It'll be tough, though, when we talk about this end game for 07. They'll have to fight against the height of that building. For Cybercats here, they're trying to clean up the remnants of OP as best they can, but the amount of damage and resources it has taken to do so is absurd. Inevitably, they will win this out, and maybe they'll get some extra loot here, but it cost quite a bit to take out just one.
It took entirely too much time, and it means that Cats don't get to push 07. They don't get to bombard them with the fuse and try and push them out of place. Instead, Cats are now in the middle of the ring, and with 202 having just finished off Vex on the high ground, 202 can now turn their attention onto the Cats on low ground, perhaps not ending their game, but making it a whole lot more difficult. And with Mitscam firing like that, I may have spoken a little bit too soon. The game for Cybercats may soon be over, as Mitscam makes a huge wrap on the bottom side, taking out the Cybercats.
Now, notably, though, this is a position that switches the location of 202 back in around from what was their initial height here. They have no choice, given that it is held heavily by Mind ahead, and what might come back to bite them now as they face just Ozzy Owl being the last one remaining here to potentially stick this one out. But look towards Phoenix Legacy. This is a team that holds the height in control in a way that should influence their success in this end game.
I just can't believe what we're seeing right now. Phoenix Legacy, yes, fantastic position on high ground. They could get second, they could get first, but 07 being in essentially the same position? I mean, who pushes 07 here? You can't. Phoenix Legacy can't give up high ground. Mind can't swing past Phoenix Legacy. 07 are also in a first, if not second position.
It's going to come down to Mind. Of all these teams here, depending on whether they take the fight directly to Phoenix Legacy or look for massive sweeps across to play for the low ground, that will decide which of these teams come out in terms of preferential decision-making in this endgame.
We gotta know where the ult cooldowns are at. Phoenix Legacy, having just put down the pylon, do have so much defense that you can't imagine that Mind want to push this. But if Mind somehow have cover to get down onto the low ground, they can cause problems for 07. In comes the Wraith with Sanka getting behind. This, you have to imagine, is a portal, but a portal out of zone. Nobody can take that to follow up on Sanka. Mind do not have things like Catwall or Bank Smoke to further obscure their rotation in, and they are going to get shut out of this rotation. 07 gatekeeping them from below.
A fantastic move from 07 there that might have just decided their win. If Mind don't opt to make this move now or soon, Phoenix are left alone. They go for the drop even after that lack of success. This should be, I mean, this is Phoenix Legacy's game to lose.
Letting this happen, letting the fight occur. Phoenix Legacy don't actually want to interfere with this too much as they need 07 to overextend on the low ground, but Mind have come back up to the high ground and 07 could not be happier.
This forces out that EMP well and earlier than Phoenix Legacy were expecting. They lose out on the fences and are forced to quickly return with the Epi. A massive double PK to find a quick wipe
Huge
on Mind. 07 leaps up, but he doesn't know how weak they truly are.
07 come up top, and while they almost win the fight, Amphi has no help. Nasky's the last one standing. Finish some kill on top, gets a shield swap, and with the flatline in close range, a PK reload. It's gonna come down to who can hit their shots. Nasky one pumps him, and 07 take the win in game 5.
In what could have been a terrifying situation for 07, leaping into a full health Phoenix Legacy, they decide their fate, and in the end, it's a quick one pump from Nasky to send for the win.
Oh my god, hitting a reload behind a knockdown shield never feels good. But popping up like that and straight up winning the game in a single shot, there's nothing like it. That was great play from, of course, 07. Phoenix Legacy as well, navigating that end circle really remarkably.
I think everything alongside Mind there and their decision making for either 07 and Phoenix Legacy is something to take a look out there, because for Mind, from the low ground to back up, both of these rosters had to make quick decisions here to put themselves in the best spot. And ultimately, well, yes, Phoenix Legacy was the team that got sent on there. Their early setup and a lot of the presence that they were showing made that wipe onto Mind so quick that they still could have relatively come out on top.
Incredible presence of mind. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but first, taking a look at this game's leaderboard. 07 with a fantastic first place. The zone prediction, the end game circle play, it all came down to this, and this is going to mean a lot for them on the leaderboards.
A big resurgence, but it's going to need to be bigger if they want to continue to push for that top 5 or further, where the real lion's share of those overall points exist here.
Now let's take a look at the 11th through 20th place, because this is where the pressure is really on when it comes into game 6. For teams like Aurora, you can call this perhaps not a great game, but at least you're all right. The same cannot be said for teams like 40% Worse, or say Red Dragon even, who have not gotten that high up in the standings yet. Go Next and ESG also starting to get a little bit concerned, and I think that concerned is absolutely the operative word in my mind when I think about the way that went for Element 6.
They talked earlier about this contest being no slight, no issue, and instead it has been the Thord and E6's side.
This was, of course, the final 2 teams in our most recent game. 07 and Phoenix Legacy on the day have had very different games. They've sat in very different positions. Phoenix Legacy prioritizing zone, of course, but sitting on the outside of launch site got a lot more damage in. A big part of this, Zephyr, and we can come back to talking about the end game now, I think does have to do with the presence that you talked about them showing, but I want to talk about Mind and the way that they approached this, because Mind, in deciding between these 2 teams, had to pick the lesser of 2 evils, and ultimately, a 3v3 against Phoenix Legacy does feel better than a 3v6 against 07 and Phoenix Legacy as you rotate on the low ground.
It's true, and in the end, they're doing the best that they can there, because ultimately, while it isn't the win that they search for, they know they can at least contest for second if they take that fight appropriately. At that point, that team, you can go jump into their comms. I highly doubt they're looking for first at that moment. They have to make the choice decision to take it away. In the end, it actually pushes them into the top 10.
This is pretty darn incredible to see Phoenix Legacy moving on up to 6th. 07 still technically just out of contention for the top 10, with LCDS fighting prowess keeping them in that position. We've got 1 game left to see where these teams go on the day. Teams like ANC have fallen pretty far down the leaderboards after their debut, and Element 6 joining right alongside them, 40% worse as well. So we got to keep our eyes on these teams who do have a lot of pressure on them, especially those from Group A that are playing for their second day. As I said, one more game to go.
All right, well, we've only got one more match left for our ALGS match day number 2 for EMEA this morning. And, well, I'm back. Hey, Dia, epic job casting with Zephyr on that last matchup, because all I saw was the fact that 07 got a well-deserved victory, and it was a very clutch moment there at the end by Nasky.
It really was, and that was a very tense lead up to it as well, with our second Southern Zone launch site somehow even more punishing than right outside of Dome, just because of all the buildings that become so powerful. And now, with one game left, I gotta say, Tiff, I don't even know what to think. I don't know who's going to walk away with this win, and I certainly don't know where the zone is going to be, although when we were on Storm Point, we got 2 similar ones and one very different, so we can always
That's true. That's true. So if we're going different, can we just go ahead and ask for a Skyhook zone? Can we make that call out?
Oh god, I hope not. I mean, maybe. Skyhook zones they're tough, and they certainly put the pressure on teams like E6 and LCDF, who were a highlight of the early game just in round 5. So I'm not sure what I want, honestly, Tiff, and I think that's okay with Apex Legends. I think we can roll the dice, see what we get, and I can guarantee that whatever it is, I'll be happy with it by the time we get into mid-game, because these teams have not been disappointing.
Not been disappointing indeed. And I mean, Hardeki, the GOAT, the legend. During my break, all I saw was on the timeline just Aurora, Hardeki clips, go galore. The Grim Reaper, huh? He's back, and will they continue to reign dominance on our lobby today? Well, we've only got one more match, and we're in the dropship, and I'm ready to see it.
I love the way that in the pre-show interview, Oirain sort of framed this as, well, yeah, we were looking for somebody, we had a few issues, we thought, hey, Hardeki's a cool guy, let's pick him up, and right now, as you say, it is Hardeki that everyone is talking about on this roster. Huge pickup, and we're back to Contest City, seeing who comes out on top of this as Vex and Cybercats go at it once again.
Knuckle clusters incoming already, just whittling away onto Vex, but Babylon's grabs the purple shield, and the Radiant transfer regen does come through. But with Cybercats able to push Vex out of Harvester, they're looking to do so again. But as Wig would say, napkin, things might be a little tough for them this far.
Especially with the purple on the other side of this. Vex not only have the Radiant Transfer, but the extra shield HP to back it up, and on Babylon's no less. A terrifying player, especially if you ever watched this fella play out of Challenger Circuit. I would not want to mess with it. Ranches does get chunked out pretty heavily, and Cybercats perhaps on the verge of trying to give up this contest, but Vex have a real curious approach. Oobing on this rotation. They drop down. Clemmy cracks for Flash, and Facco on the flank means the Cybercats are wiped out.
And this is not good for Cybercats, who are second overall on the day. And essentially, this will crack open the leaderboard, the full English, made in heaven. They're waiting in the midst to try and push them out of the top 3. And now we just have to wait. And Dia, what is this? What is this?
Oh my God, Tiff, you were not joking about the script. You knew the whole time.
Look,
here I was thinking it was just a bit of innocent
on the
fun.
broadcast, man, and you know how Graceful likes to talk to the devs? No, I'm just kidding. I am totally kidding.
For legal reasons, we're kidding. This is we do have, I'll say, a more complicated game path now for a lot of our teams, not just out of the South, but including even teams like Aurora, who now get to change their strategy completely out of Climatizer, likely moving through the train line, but ultimately, if you're looking at where they're starting, they've got a good read. They'd like to get access to crafting. Epicenter starts to become a lot more attractive. Landslide for a lot of teams as well.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be really interesting because look where Made in Heaven has positioned themselves. We've seen a lot of zones pull specifically there and not actually end up on that Skyhook side. And typically you'll also see people playing that tunnel line. So I'm curious to see Made in Heaven evacing, making the choice to go deep into Skyhook.
And I think that if you're betting on a Skyhook ending, and you probably should be at this point in the game, if you've got zone read, and you likely do, this is what you're predicting, you do need to get into these buildings rather quickly. There are a lot of them now, but based on what your specific IGL's read is on the ring, you've really only got 1 or 2 options for an actual winning position. So zone teams are not really feeling relaxed at this point in the game. Instead, the pressure is very much on them to move as fast as possible. Edge teams, however, this is where they big chill.
This is where they big chill. I see no chill. I see thermites. I see prominence burns. I see things akin to only things that you would see in My Hero. But UAIM have fallen, and LCDF having to battle around the energy barricade that's effectively been thrown down inside the building. Now, I really do love conduit ults that are utilized inside because they can be so dangerous.
They certainly can. This is worrying me, however. E6's rotation down. Remember, as a SkyWest landing enthusiast, E6's positioning doesn't really, I assume, make them feel too good about the way that the ring has chosen to go this time around. Passion can't be feeling happy about it either, as it does mean they've even got to fight somebody for their rotation up. But E6, they've got no real loot to work with. They've got very little space. The one thing that's saving them is that they do technically have high ground, a better position than Passion have at the moment.
Really curious to see how they effectively tackle this. Denze kind of leading the charge, trying to whittle away at the shields, but Element 6, they are poised to get a position into Skyhook and continue on that rotation. And just 14th overall on the day, knowing that they won that initial matchup in A versus B. Can only imagine that K-Swinney is just not too pumped on the way this day has gone, but still knowing that they can make a play for game number 6 and try to do essentially damage control on the day's performance, I'm sure we'll see that.
Yeah, I mean, they're prowling around for now, seeking out kills, and Element 6 should be able to find a few, and by sitting in Countdown, have access to the next ring console as well, which actually could be a big determiner of their success, prioritizing that. But with all the teams that we talked about moving around in zone, with the pressure really on them, Phoenix Legacy have played so remarkably today that I can't help but want to know what's going on in their heads, Tiff. So let's take a listen in.
Yeah. Dude, the audio I heard below. I was like, what the fuck is happening?
This building is also free. There's a team here, I think.
I think we should stay here for now. No, if anything, we can Valkyrie from behind the building.
I'm just looking what's happening. We can Valkyrie from behind the building. Yeah, wouldn't be bad. Wouldn't be bad. But the thing is, I think that. Oh wait, this team is right here. So watch out.
Okay. Are they shooting somebody or what?
My drone. I'm just leaving it right here in case they try to push.
Yeah. I just don't want to let them see that we have fights. Wait, they're coming close. Yeah, the door.
I'm with you, Subs.
And as we come back, Dia, the question that you asked, I want to look inside their head, and they all sound cool, calm, collected, actively looking for insight throughout the entirety of the players. And yes, 07 was trying to look for an opening onto Phoenix Legacy, but when you get punished from a team also just kind of overlooking, it's the 30-30s that have been really just dominant in being able to punish any form of extensions.
And a nice little handshake emoji for everybody who likes to play zone, just because of the coverage that you're able to allow each other, like you talked about. Cool, calm, and collected, and most importantly, calming everything for Phoenix Legacy, for every team that's sat in zone right now, because while right now it may not matter, teams like 07 that are looking for cheeky plays do have to be monitored, and they've got the potential to mess up your game a little bit later when eventually you do have to rotate in. Knowing who is where they think the zone is going to end, that's what it's all about, and it's what Phoenix Legacy is in the best place to observe. Taking another look at this ring, a lot of teams have read this in a similar way. It's get into Skyhook or die outside of Skyhook.
I'm most concerned with 40% worse right now. They've anchored down inside that tunnel, and as Aurora rotates in, they seem to have effectively found one member of 40% worse waiting for reinforcements from the remaining two players, and a 9-imp staple as a Bangalore. It's smoking forward, coupling alongside the Digi threat to try and find the upper hand, but 9 Impulse, a Bangalore as well, going against Shiv, known for the Bangalorean Warlord, effectively has to come off and hit the Phoenix kit. But for 40% worse, can they manage that push? Aurora has to get to Skyhook.
A6 getting pushed. They made the conscious decision to move out into Countdown, hang on for what we have to imagine is the next ring scan. But even now looking at it, this is not an option any longer. E6 have to survive 2R1C, who are choosing to rotate past and into Skyhook. But E6 also don't have much to do outside of Skyhook. They don't have a console legend. They cannot get access to the next ring. And if they're not picking up kills, I gotta ask myself, what on earth are they doing?
It's a very good question, but for the time being, we'll go back to that later. Oirein hits the ult, pops the scans, looks for information to be able to allow Hardeki and 9 Impulse to get in there. And Hardeki, the Grim Reaper himself, opening it up with a knock on to Zeri, turning the tides of that fight in their favor. A little 3-2 action.
Ordnance is making the real difference in that particular case. You may not be able to peek through a box, but you can make it an unplayable area. Vex have taken note of the fight in tunnel and are starting to move in as well, putting 40% worse in an even worse position. No way out, really, but through one of the sides of this tunnel that leads either into Skyhook or into the soon-to-be completely out-of-zone survey camp.
Tough positioning here for Vex. They're going to have to find their way else towards Skyhook. And now that I think about it, 2R1C on that rotation kind of from the western side of Skyhook, there's a ring console that's relatively available to them. They'll probably look to see can get that scan and find something that's viable for them. And you can see it's just north of where they are. If they are able to grab that ring console information and have everyone else effectively call the zone wrong and you clear that out, this is a good game for 2R1C then.
And everyone else has effectively called the zone wrong. Taking a look at the map right now, there is so much fighting that's going to happen, or at least relocation on the eastern side of Skyhook. 2R1C should be able to get the scan, put themselves into an optimal position as Passionate and ANC do have a decent one. Aurora, completely unbothered by anything ring related, are simply seeking down their prey. It's what's worked for them so well on Stormpoint, and it's giving them a lot better of a chance of success, because the thing that separates Aurora from the rest of the rosters that we've seen today has been their ability to control the space around them. And once you get into Skyhook, you can't really do that. It's much better for Aurora to play edge, to exert pressure onto other squads, and then be forced into everyone else's game once they get into the actual city.
Ooh, and for Vex, so I was curious about their positioning, but it really opens them up to find a lone solo Wraith portaling out, trying to survive. But the one thing I know about playing Wraith a lot, anytime you portal to heal, a lot of people will just straight up chow it. Take your portal, you're essentially giving them the ticket to find you.
Oh, you play in lobbies with a lot more ego than I do. I am never chowing that. I see a Wraith portal on 2 HP and I'm like, that's good for you. Enjoy.
GG go next, right?
Yeah.
ESG though, 17th overall of the day, trying to find their way in towards Skyhook, and this tunnel effectively, I feel like I'm looking at a shooting range and they're just gonna start popping up, and Light just needs to start connecting some of these 30-30 shots because with that Skull Piercer effectively giving that damage boost, let's make it happen.
Evac tower available, of course, for ESG. They can make their way up towards Grandma's house in case of an emergency. Element 6, remember, on the other side of this, choosing to play out of Countdown. This has to be where the game plan for E6 starts to kick in as well. Very little room to maneuver for the squads around them, and KP has to be what they're thinking of.
And Lufka able to find the lone member of Red Dragon, but Phoenix Legacy goes down at the hands of Aurora, who have just been racking up the KP, looking to extend on that points differential that they've been able to hold throughout the entire lobby. Man, we were so curious to see the performance in the debut of Group C, and they have not let us down.
ESG starting to make their way over to Countdown. This is the fight that, I mean, E6 have to take, that they have to have been planning for the entire time. They've taken 0 fights up until now. A smoke goes out towards ESG, who are not going to give up on this rotate. This is the only way they make it into zone. Again, things like an evac tower are possible, but you have to imagine we're taking a fight. E6 are looking like they don't even want to.
It's crazy because a lot of the average duration of fights in match day number 1, we're sitting around 30 seconds. This zone closes in 30 seconds. So we need to do it. We need to do it quick. But in the meantime, LCDF has fallen and Aurora takes down another victim. 07 finding themselves in dire straits. Amphi just trying to heal up and survive as much as they can here in Diner and moving towards the staircase. We find so much damage value here, and Nags trying to hit the flank, and Amphi finds one. Can we get another? But no, falls. The trades come out. Outplayed. Andy Jax trying to live up to Shex's hype, but it's not going to be enough. Nasky clutches again.
Quick reset as nobody else in the area to third party on this, and really nice movement from 07 as well to cover all angles of this second story. They now look out defensively for themselves, perhaps keeping an eye behind on the tunnel as well, as E6 and ESG should be flying in right about now. Aurora do not get to survive, Vex being the ones to eliminate them.
So with our first top 2 teams, Cybercats and Aurora out of the lobby, the full English Made in Heaven 2R1C, those will be the teams that withstand below. But for Light with ESG, trying to make siege onto this building, looking for the full to garner a shield swap. Lufka and co. still able to find more success. Element 6, K-Sweaty just throws down, turns the tide of the battle. Incoming ordinances, ultimates galore. Can K-Sweaty live?
Manages to at least recover the banner and likely a shield swap in the next couple of seconds. Out it comes, but grenades still keep E6 honest inside this building. No access to a respawn beacon just yet. Might have a Moby, but even then, very difficult to get your third back into the game. Likely E6 are going to have to play this out as a duo with so many other teams looking in upon them.
Numbers are whittling down, and 40% worse fallen just before that as well. But as we get a good look at that map, the full English Made in Heaven, that's going to be a very vital skirmish for good positioning here, and there's a lot of chaos, Dia.
Made in Heaven in full English. I mean, we've talked about full English. They are in third. They could take first this game. A very good position from them in this building. And with proper usage of the high ground, you can absolutely find a win as either Made in Heaven or full English. It's kind of funny to see both of these teams that are so close in the standings be so close to each other physically.
ESG has fallen and 2R1C has to rotate. Let's jump into a listen in and hear how they'll navigate it.
Nice. And right to
What's on it to cross?
Look for the KP. They walled on the other side, guys. They walled here.
On the other side, yeah. I'm milling. Just watch out back.
Watch Watson. Move Watson.
I'm in.
I'm milling, okay? On our left, guys.
Watson behind. Watson behind. One HP. Keep up back.
On me. She's here, ready, guys. I won't really
on the right, what does all?
Just wait, just wait.
Batting. I'm batting. After bat we go.
Ready?
After bat. 2 seconds.
I'm on the space.
Go. I'm going now.
Be careful under. There can be people under.
There might be. Just clean up with you. He's free. Get it. No. Just hold, guys.
Peek in the staircase. 70 on him.
He cannot do it, just hold. On the open field as well. Here, Uxako, neck and left.
Put Catcus here. We need to hold this. Don't care too much about KP.
I will. Pretty chill. We have God spot. In the open as well.
We need to avoid getting shot from the back.
Watch out here.
Be careful behind you, Uxako. Don't die, bro. They have DG.
Okay.
They have crypto as well. I will pop an ult XL.
I'm not guy.
You're gonna play for
Please
EMEA.
don't damage the combo. Stick together. Shoot right, Mizzy, please. Here, D. Your left, Mizzy.
Careful the back.
We win this fucking game.
They're gonna push us at some point.
He's gonna peek.
We need to have. I'm gonna pay them austerities, okay?
Yeah, okay.
We need one guy to watch this whole time.
I will wall later here and we play here,
I'm
okay?
watching with you for now. Can you watch the back after Yerka?
Yeah.
I can.
We should triple watch.
We should double. At least double.
Triple. I'm gonna have a look here as well, but triple watch this shit.
I will use wall for
What is the next
protection.
play?
I don't have bot. I just wall forward here. I wall there, okay? I will wall. You just follow me, okay? Believe.
Yeah.
Believe in me. That's it.
They cross. The team left cross. You can play for TC.
Yeah. Just one guy behind you.
Left side.
Here, they can do.
Yeah, look. Hold left side free, guys. Hold left side free.
Yeah, it's fine. We gotta
What
play
do
here.
we let
You
now?
see this? You see this? You will need
Yes.
to ult right side. I will wall to here.
Yeah, we go and play left.
Careful the back still. Careful the back still.
Yeah, still, be careful.
Make sure.
Yeah, just chill. I will wall and you need to watch right side. 3 shots right side. You got this, baby. Do a good ult, Uxako. In front of us.
I'm ulting now.
Holding it.
Chill.
I'm
I wall, the wall. It's a good wall.
You have Wallach on everyone. You see in the white.
Play the wall.
Left.
On me,
So right.
safe on me. Uxako.
I'm
Come
coming.
back. Here. I'm raising. I'm sticking.
Yeah.
Shoot. Don't farm easy. We need to wipe. Wipe them.
Come left, I think. Come left. Come to me. Come
I'm with you, Mizzy.
to me here. Here, AFK.
I'm not making it.
Right side.
Oh my, in front as well.
Right side.
Hook in front.
I'm going up. We can wipe that.
Just you. I think we kill right or left. Left. Go left.
Go left.
No.
On this one.
All you guys, I crack one in you. Yerka, play Nox.
Play knock. Top two. Good shit, baby. Nice.
Good job.
You don't get any kills.
Uxako, bro, listen, bro, please. Please, bro, listen. We are 10 minutes in the game plan and you almost fuck it up.
Reign supreme, but it's still an 0-7 clutch up here for the back-to-back in maps number 5 and maps number 6 to turn that slower start on Stormpoint into a revengeance arc here. Dia, that was wild. I got the skyhook ending I wanted and it paid off.
And just like I said, whatever it is, I'm happy. And I was very, very happy at the end of that game, watching 0-7 take the win, and especially seeing how it played out in the comms of the team that ultimately got second place. And I think we saw 2R1C pull a move that a lot of teams made the exact same as, trying to move out, play underneath the building that Made in Heaven ultimately held, and it didn't work out for them, and everybody committing so many resources to trying to play under Made in Heaven, trying to take away that, in air quotes, God spot, let 07 walk into the other side of the zone uncontested with too many catwalls to track and suffer very few losses as they faced down a partial last squad.
You know, now that I think about it, spending a lot of time in that 2R1C listen-in really didn't allow us to see it from 07's perspective. But to grab 15 eliminations, a dominating performance, we've got to see some replays on behalf of Nasky and crew. But as we look towards Passion, ESG, Aurora, 6 eliminations despite going out in 14th place. But they've had a chokehold on this lobby for their debut in Group C. But for Cybercats, man, that 2nd place overall in the day, it's gonna open some things up after this map. But I'd like to bring back Stella and Zephyr. What an exciting match number 6. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Oh my goodness. I really wish that T-Rats 1 controller could have won that one, but obviously they were a little bit off on where exactly they wanted to go, and it just broke my heart to see that. But Zephyr, what did you think? My bad. Zephyr, what did you think of the last circle where 2Rats 1 controller could not pull it together to get that first win?
I mean, really, all I can say is, Yuchako, listen! Because that's about the only thing I heard in those comments at the moment. A little bit of that clarity, or lack thereof, though, really came back to bite 2R1C. In contest to what they were saying, I don't think they actually had the God spot, especially with 07 kind of in more preferential position off of the fence line, the building. But ultimately, their control, especially around those Dark Veils and their opponents, allowed them to transition at least into 2nd overall. And who knows, maybe if we had some better directive there, a potential win on the board.
Yeah, so Tiff, I'm really curious, what was it like just seeing so many Catalyst walls in the end? We saw 2 crossing. I felt like I was getting taken back to a previous season.
It could be Apex Legends, or it could be Visual Clutter Legends. That's just typically what it's been like, seeing Catalyst in the mix, especially with year 3 and continuing into year 4. It is so preferential to keep your Dark Veil for those vital end games, to effectively keep that out of sight, out of mind statistic there for that you brought up in map number 4, I believe. Because if someone doesn't have a direct line of sight, or you in their vision, they're going to seek and see who they can shoot and which are their next targets to essentially remove from that end game. And then as soon as that veil drops, that's where things get real mixy.
Yeah, speaking of endgame, Zephyr, lead us through the past few end circles that we saw. I mean, clearly there was a lot of chaos in a lot of these circles, so let's take a look back, and Zephyr, help us break it down.
Now this one, we obviously start out with a lot of presence towards the likes here of, I believe, Made in Heaven, but ultimately it was Cybercats really exemplifying that fuse in its control, pushing in, zoning, and then in the end, their presence alongside the likes, of course, here at Full English was enough to take this out from a high ground positioning. But I'll tell you what, Dia, you got to catch the end, of course, I believe, of this next game here. I want you to run me through, especially as we start to close out the close here, at least on this final one, how we saw the end for 07, or at least how they transitioned off of what was mine.
Yeah, this was probably my favorite end game of the day. Watching the tension in this and the way that Mind played it out. We did talk about this earlier, Zephyr, but ultimately swinging Phoenix Legacy is the best choice here. What is amazing about this end game is how well Phoenix Legacy handled the next couple of seconds, because while this was ultimately an 07 win, and a well-deserved one with the timing and the positioning that 07 were able to make use of, the fact that Phoenix Legacy almost won this cannot be ignored, and it came down to 1 PK shot separating these squads.
In the end, 1 PK shot is all but end, but I like the fact that we now get to see this from a little bit of a higher potential here. Of course, Tiffany, in the end, the 2R1C don't come out on top, but 07, they take a lot of space.
Yeah, effectively, you see the 3 catwalls and 07 trying to navigate just towards that left-turn side, and although 2R1C, their veil falls forward, 07 is keeping pressure, smoking them out, and albeit the call to push forward here throughout, hip firing the Havoc and trying to put as much damage, it might actually have been the death of them. And while Hiarka is trying to clutch up and live, Made in Heaven fall, and they were at the top of the leaderboard. And although 07 goes back to back, the thing of the day is 07 were out of the top 15 going into the final 2 matches of the day. And look at the changes here, Stella.
Yeah, this is incredible. 77 points. Aurora sitting in first place, second place Made in Heaven at 55. And you know, even though 2 Reds 1 Controller did not win their last match, they're still sitting at 47, which is not that far off from second place. So listen, I think they did a great job. All of these teams did phenomenal. And I think that this is going to just set their pacing for Group C. And Dia, I don't know, we saw Aurora take 2 wins and 07 as well. Do you think they could do that again?
I would not doubt it, especially if we're talking on Stormpoint. Aurora's, as we said in Game 6, spatial control is what is just far and away better than other teams right now. They're really good at identifying, especially on Stormpoint, their win conditions. And of course, their fighting potential on World's Edge doesn't make the game too difficult for them either. I'm really impressed by their first place position. 07's third as well is remarkable, and I have to give love to Full English, who went from 16th in match day 1 all the way to a top 4 position on just their second day of the ALGS.
And speaking of showing some love, I believe that you have someone in mind, Zephyr. Who is your MVP today?
Now, I feel like this is to the surprise of absolutely nobody, but it would be wrong if we didn't put Hardeki up on the board. This is a man who has been through it, not just here today, but for these last few years. This is the first shining light of the Grim Reaper that we have seen since 2022. From clutch moments like this against Go Next to potentially many more on World's Edge that allowed Aurora to stay on top of not just their KP, but the points and of course first place as a whole here. They were the decisive factor in EMEA, and that's a lot of pressure for the man Hardeki himself. He finishes off the day in first overall with the highest damage, 6,692, 15 KP, which then allows him to walk away with the highest KDA, 3.5.
Whew, that is incredible and nothing to sniff at. Now, we are going to be able to talk to someone from Aurora, and unfortunately it's not Hardeki, but it's actually kind of great because we get to go full circle back to Oirain, who we did see an interview snippet with earlier. Hello!
Hello!
I hear them laughing in the background. So we obviously got to hear your snippet before the show, and you talked about having great wipes and synergy, but is this the type of performance you expected or even better?
I think we expected even better, but it's fine for now.
It's fine. I thought you guys did a phenomenal job, but you know what, Tiff, I'm gonna let you take the next question.
It's fine for now, but congratulations, Oirain. This has got to feel good. I remember seeing you guys at Champs, and you were trying to just kind of figure out what was going to be going forward. So it has to feel good on your debut to take the top of the leaderboard. But you mentioned in your interview early on that there were some kind of problems in game with Task. Talk about the transition and bringing Hardeki in, and how has that changed things for your roster? And I know you seek to improve going forward, but just talk to me a little bit about that.
There's a big difference because Hardeki is doing a lot of job for now that we need to. He's making some calls that helping us. He's always watching back. It's helping us, and he's always clutching. So it's good for us. For us.
Hardeki the GOAT, always clutching, and we saw that so much throughout today, and that makes me super happy. But going forward, can you tell me a little bit about your goals for year 4?
We're looking for top 1 in Pro League, top 1 on LAN, top 1 Pro League, top 1 on LAN, top 1 on LAN, as last time. Same goals.
Now, normally I wouldn't ask this question, but since you got first, I feel like it's okay. What from today, when you say that you're, still wanting to improve in future weeks, what is it that you think you did really well today? What is a victory for the team? And what's something that coming out of today you need to work on?
The good thing that played well as a team, and I think of improvements. I think we need to improve a bit our board stage, and that's all.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Stella. Do you have any last questions for our wonderful guest?
Yeah, so you talk about wanting to take first place in obviously every event because it's every. Oh, hello! The boys, we love the support. I love the energy. So, how do you feel like your character choices, your legend choices paid off for you today? Because you obviously made the call in the interview saying that you're not going to be controversial or anything and you're going to stick with your guns. So, how did that feel going into matches today?
That was perfect. I don't know what else to say. It
Amazing.
was perfect. Yeah.
Do you feel like there are any weapons that you feel like you and your team need to get better at on challenging on drops right away? Because let me tell you, when I get a wingman on drop, it's game over.
No, I think everything fine. We are giving wingman always to Hardeki, so we can win.
I love it. I love it. Give Hardeki the wingman and let him fry.
Yeah.
How many hours would you say that you put in together with this new team, though? Like, do you feel like it's enough? You need a few more hours every day?
No, I think it's enough. We are playing every day from the morning to the evening, and we are playing scrims. We are making VOD reviews, and we're watching. For now, we're gonna watch an Pro League. So yeah, we have enough hours together.
Okay, so then I'm actually curious. You watched last week's matches. So how did you feel about the performance you saw there? And what exactly are you looking for as a pro player when you see other groups play? And what do you use from that knowledge to apply to games like today?
If you ask my opinion, from the last game that I watched, I just want to shoot like 0 from Dark Zero, and that's all.
Oh, that's a good one to keep an eye on. Dia, do you have, it seems like you had another question up your sleeve.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because you got to see this match day play out, and we talked about the way that you guys interact with the meta. You like to do your own thing, and then just, that's the best game of Apex Legends that you can play. I want to know how you feel this meta is interacting with you, the way that everyone else is playing. Is that making it easier for you this season or more difficult than in previous seasons?
I think it's more difficult because almost every team is playing with defensive characters like Watson and Catalyst. We don't like Catalyst at all, but overall it's harder than previous season. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm good. I have got the download. I am ready to see you play again.
Okay.
Yeah, so which team are you the most excited to match off against in your next games?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Which team are you most excited to face off against in your next few matches?
Probably Alliance.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tiff, any closing thoughts or questions?
Nah, I mean, I was always a fan of Fire Beavers, so seeing you guys under the banner of Aurora and kind of bringing through, you can see the boys in the back supporting you. Can we just get all three of you on screen at this point? We need to see the whole crew, because I love that you guys are playing together in the same room to have that camaraderie. So let's get them all in here.
Okay, 1 second.
We'll find out. Yeah. It's like, you've asked me an organizational question now. I need to get other people
We need the crew.
Hi.
I forgot 9 Impulse is so tall, bro. No flower crown for us today. Hi,
Thank you so
Hardeki.
much. Thank you so much. An amazing job today. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with us.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, Zephyr, how did you feel about seeing your team speak up and seeing the boys behind him?
I don't know about my team, but I will say after today, it's starting to make a good case for me here in EMEA as the potential leaders, because especially after hearing them, they're not a team that leads with entire, blind confidence. You can clearly see that today, even in its greatest moments, wasn't the best for a roster like Aurora. And there's a reason why we continue to see them excel and stand above the rest. I have no doubts, not just today, but going into tomorrow, especially look towards World's Edge, you will see a different beast.
Awesome. Okay, so obviously with them saying that they want to try and they're most excited to fight against Alliance. I mean, Dia, what do you take from that? Do you think they're going to be able to... Man, I want to get spicy. I would love to see a contest, but I don't know. What do you feel like their best play would be?
With Alliance right now, I don't think Aurora have to worry. The Aurora right now is outfighting Alliance, period, full stop. Alliance is still very much figuring out the new season, and well, I think that they are going to, by the end of the season, get into a good place again. You're taking a roster that basically has a lot of really good things going for it, where they've picked up a new third and they're like, wow, this is going amazing, against a roster that's like, oh, who are we in this meta? And I don't think it's a fair fight right now. I think that when they say we want to fight up against Alliance, they want to fight against peak Alliance. And right now, we need a few more match days to get there.
I don't think it's an Alliance question of who are we. I think it's navigating their pacing. And you look towards Effect in particular, because he was so used to playing on Horizon, being such a heavy fragger, and then moving him effectively onto Catalyst. So once that synergy, the flow of the maps, the flow of the fights, once that locks in and they play as a team together, that's the Alliance that Aurora wants to tackle. And if we see those two in final form, that's going to be wild to see. But you're right, it's just the start of the year and we have so many more match days to go.
We do, but you know what? We can talk all about the future matchups, but let's take a look at the final standings as they are right now. Woo, Zephyr, 0-7 at top. How do you feel?
Ooh. To say I'm surprised, I think would be a lie. Nasky and crew are putting up the numbers that makes us look towards this team as a dominant factor. Now, granted, I will preface this with the fact that they are representing A twice in these standings, so there's a reason that we see them. But the same can even be said for Element 6, 2R1C, and Outplayed. The beast, though, that lies in wait, 5th with a further match day to play. I wouldn't be surprised if we see things shake up tomorrow.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a pretty incredible scoring. I mean, Dia, look at the last 10 teams as well. This is still nothing to scoff at either.
It is not, especially with teams that we were praising so much. LCDF, as just one example and the most egregious, took so many successful fights today that I mean, they've got more kills than at least 3-4 of the teams in the bottom 10. They were excellent fighters. Phoenix Legacy were playing zone perfectly. Vex had a lightning rod zone that they honestly did quite well in. Everybody here has something going for them, and I think it speaks to the competition that we've currently got in the top 10. And it will mean that ultimately today, while there were some successes for teams like Phoenix Legacy, LCDF, they can't actually feel too great about where they are. They now have to sort of almost after a good day go, oh, we're a bit panicked now.
Yeah, I mean, they have another day ahead of them though, Tiff, and I'm curious, how do you think they're going to do with Group B and C now that we've seen both performances?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, right? We've got a double header for the weekend, so a lot of our teams have been just locked watching today's match day, and then they'll be able to kind of go through tomorrow and apply everything that they've learned. But for our teams here, Alliance, will they be able to get those pacing issues done? And VQ, man, Kashera was looking really good in scrims. I even saw him lock in Wraith for a World's Edge one day and utilizing her Q into some really interesting ways, but I'm sure he'll return to that Crypto, and honestly, it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm very happy to see Crypto still make it in EMEA. Now, I did mention, of course, that B and C is going to be the next day 3. So, Zephyr, I don't know, look at these lineups. What do you think is going to be the biggest challenges for each group?
You know, we're all looking for Aurora, of course, to make their reappearance and see if they are truly the dominant factor, but there's so many names out here on the other side that have shown performance previously. Changes with the No Days Off roster, LVH with some of their wins from last week, Alliance with their history alone, our friend Graceful, who we barely got to talk to, but has been showing some recovery for Cold, and more. Remember, while we may be starting to lead out on our race here in EMEA, there are still multiple spots that are left unawarded. And truly, I will say this, from second down to 30, no one to truly represent who belongs there.
Yeah, and don't forget, viewers at home watching this, you can watch EMEA Day 3 tomorrow at the same time that you saw it today. Now, Dia, Made in Heaven did pretty well today. Do you think they can go up against Group B and their incredible roster that we see here?
I honestly think they'll have a better day against Group B. Made in Heaven played a really nicely paced game. I think that they were the right amount of aggressive, and up against Group B, they actually should have a pretty nice time. I don't think that's a hot take.
Amazing. Well, Tiff, I want to get your final thoughts on today's matches and anything else you might want to be able to say to viewers and the teams who might be watching.
Look, if Aurora finds their final form, it's going to be scary, especially in tomorrow's matchup. You heard Oirein, he's not happy. Aurora wants more, and they've already effectively said that they're playing this on hard mode, utilizing the Bang Blood Horizon. So, look, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. It's watching solo leveling, and it's watching ALGS.
Amazing. And Dia, how about you? What are your final thoughts?
I think we had a really good day here in EMEA. It's nice to be able to now, having seen everyone play, be able to take a look at the league more holistically. And as Tiff alluded to, and as you've said, tomorrow we'll get an even better look at that. So I'm not jumping to any conclusions yet, but I'm pretty well satisfied with what we've seen today.
Zephyr, are you satisfied with everything that you saw today?
I'll tell you what, when it comes to EMEA, I am always satisfied. They leave nothing and more for Zephyr to worry about. But I will say, you know, while we aren't jumping to conclusions, especially given that it's only 2 days, this is a 9-day season, and tomorrow we finish off our round robin. While yes, teams can look to take the time to improve here, getting that early momentum, especially from rosters like Aurora, 07, and even Element 6, who I'm still rooting for as we work our way into the future, this is your best chance to not worry for the future.
That makes two of us. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today. And if you're looking for NA Day 2, don't worry, that's coming very soon. That's going to be live at 3 p.m. PT or 11 p.m. GMT, depending on where you are at. And you are going to be able to see some of the new teams. Obviously, this is going to be teams A and C going up against each other in NA today, and I'm very excited. And we have Luminosity Gaming here. We're looking at some of the previous matches from day 1 here, and if it's only an indication, we know that they are bringing the heat today. Now, Tiff, I am so excited to see all of these teams come back and also see Group C debut their skills.
Look, Group C has been in final form, and I've seen a slew of anime gifs on the timeline coming from Disguise, coming from Xset. We've been told that, you know, Group C is effectively that group of death. You've got Furia, you have Xset, Legacy, the former Luminosity, taking on the new Luminosity. Who will reign supreme? Who will take the top? Roster changes galore, Sentinels will be there, and man, I am ready. 6 p.m. Eastern cannot come soon enough.
I'm so excited. Well, I'll see you all soon. Thank you so much for sharing your talents and casting all the games with me today. And just in case you do miss it, don't worry. You can always follow the action at Play Apex on X, and also rewatch all of the previous matches and amazing highlights that the crew throw together on YouTube and Twitch at Play Apex Esports. Thank you to everyone, to our production team, our amazing casters, our incredible players that give us this chance to cast Apex. We'll see you next time. See you on the dropship.